can get new tires and stuff.
I know the area.
Yeah.
Been there quite a bit.
Okay.
Okay. Corporation of Harpers Ferry Budget and Finance Committee is having their regular meeting today on May 31st, 2022 at 3:30 p.m. right on time. In attendance is Deb Keller, our financial officer for the Corporation of Harpers Ferry, and 3 town council members, Laurel Drake, Storm Iscanzanzo, and myself, Christian Pachicones. I'm working on it.
All right.
All right. So let me just read the notice, public notice. Until further notice, the Corporation of Harpers Ferry governing and deliberative bodies will hold its meetings and/or hearings virtually via Zoom webinar, which provides for public participation during a public comment period when applicable and when posted on the agenda. Alternatively, the public may be watched by YouTube, live stream, or listen by telephone. These options comply with the West Virginia Open Governmental Meetings Act. All right.
I move to approve the agenda as.
Before we do, I normally would too, but some people want to move some things around.
Oh, sure.
Okay, for the convenience for that.
Motion withdrawn.
Yeah, okay, thanks. The one is Patty Morris. She had requested we move up the number 17, and I agree with that. And just move it up into a first position so that she can just attend that piece of the meeting.
Okay.
And there may be another.
Did number 2, that one is going to actually require us to go through the process of evaluating the bid.
Okay.
So I'm grateful that we have a bid, but I think we should move it to the very end.
Sorry, 17 or 16?
17.
Move 17 to.
I may have the numbering wrong on my document
The
here.
one on July 4th.
July 4th, just move July 4th, whatever number that is, into the first position. And let's move number 2
This is what I'm.
to the last
To the very
position?
end,
To the
yeah.
end.
Yeah.
Because we're just going to
I
sit here and
translated it to another
calculate stuff,
document,
and there's no
thinking
sense
about it
people
Which is
waiting for us to do
4th of
that.
July.
I agree.
Thank you.
Okay. Any?
You want me to let her know?
Yes, she asked.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll do the approval of minutes and then we'll start with, we'll just follow the rest of the schedule, but we'll move our 17-1 position.
No, I don't know.
And
You might have to wait around for that second.
Okay.
Oh,
I could,
okay, so it's just moving 17 to first position.
Yep,
Yes,
and 2 to the last
To the
position.
last position. Where we have there. Any other ones we need to move around?
Yeah, okay.
See, I thought maybe the chief of mayor would have been here, and I see they're not, and I would have moved them up as well.
Do you want to move it up just in case? Or I guess we can do that.
No.
We'll just go.
so I can offer a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
I'll second that.
Oh.
You go ahead, you second. And then discussion, all those in favor? Aye. All right, passes. All right, let's do the approval of the minutes. Approval of minutes from April 7th, special meeting. Does anybody have any motion to approve or any changes?
I would want to do the two together.
Good, April 4th, well, wasn't there some potential discussion on, well, there was no April 26th meeting. I only put it on because I thought I saw the calendar. I wasn't here, so no meeting, okay. May 4th, there was a meeting and potential changes there, so I think we should do them as two.
Sure. I move to approve the April 7th special meeting minutes as submitted.
I'll second that. Discussion? All in
And that,
favor?
1 second, so that was the right date, it was the 7th?
Yes.
Okay, because I guess between the 7th and the 4th, yeah. But got a little mixed up.
It was a
I
short
thought
meeting.
Thought it was April 4th, but no, it's April 7th, okay, no problem.
Okay. All right, number 2, the April 26th, there was no meeting, so forget that. We do have an older one for March, meeting that was not approved. We will get that on next month's agenda. I missed that one, sorry. It was March 31st, I think. something like that.
That
That's okay, it was the end of March sometime, but we'll get it later. And then,
I'm afraid I interrupted the process of voting on accepting the minutes of April the 7th. Do you want to go back to that? We didn't vote.
oh, we did?
I don't think we did.
No.
Oh, all those in favor? Sorry,
who was the
moving a
second?
little too fast, sorry.
Who was the second on that? Was
No, he was the first.
it
I
second?
made the motion and you made the second.
Flying.
Yes.
Flying.
Okay, May 4th, regular meeting minutes. Is it fine the way it is, or do we have to make any changes?
I had made a change for Laurel's email and did send around the revised version.
Okay, I missed that, yeah.
And that was just changing so that the water administrator position did not use the word contractor anywhere in it.
Yeah.
So, were there any other amendments beyond that?
All those all those in favor of approval of the amended minutes of the May 4th regular meeting?
Was that the motion?
Yeah.
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor? All right. Number 1, let's get that, Patty, this is where you come in. This is discussion and action to approve up to $200 funding request for the 4th of July town event.
Christian, were you able to share the rest of the packet with everybody?
Yeah, didn't I send that earlier?
I
You
believe
sent it on
so. It was
Thursday, Friday.
Quite a bit.
Okay.
I was sending away like
Okay.
all kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, well, basically, the 4th of July event was never a Parks and Rec initiative, it was always the Women's Club. And the Women's Club, unfortunately, is dwindling in membership. COVID shut us down for a while, so last year was the first time we decided to try to bring it back. And in the past, the Women's Club made a pretty big day of it with hot dogs and a great meal, and we decided to forget all of that and make it simple. And so we tried just having the watermelon and the water that was provided by Parks and Rec. We bought some American flags and handheld fans and giveaways. And then the Women's Club cut and served the watermelon and the water. And then the town, as in the past, paid directly for the band. So knowing that we participated last year, we decided to include it in our 23 budget. And so we threw in a couple $100 for it. And I hadn't thought about this. We did not include the band because the band historically has come from the town. If we continue doing this, maybe next year we can put that in this budget line item if you would like, and just leave it.
So in prior years, the funding came from the town fund budget line.
And actually, I don't know if you can do that in this situation because it's really not a big deal because it's not a tremendous amount of money. But if you're able to, it would be good to designate that to come out of 906 in this discussion about the 4th of July event. If you feel like that's outside the scope of the request, that's fine. It's really not a big deal. We've taken, in the past, it's come just out of City Hall.
Okay, let's just do it that way.
Now, this year, yeah, because this year we didn't allocate funds for it, and I'm not sure what their fee is going to be. Last time they gave us a reduced fee because they were only gonna play for an hour, and they had half the band. We talked to them sticking around a little bit longer.
That's why last year they were just the Roar Band and not the Roarsville.
There you go, yes. Maybe it was just a bill, but, so I'm not sure, I talked to them, they're hard to get a hold of, I finally talked to them, and they said, well, we'll play for an hour, and I'm like, no, how about 2 hours? And I said, please confirm their fee, so I don't know what their fee is gonna be. I felt last year, it's nominal, but I wish we.
Oh, we're glad they do it. I mean, it's such a tradition.
Yeah, it really is fun.
Yeah.
we're
So
not getting
basically,
it.
what we're at, we budgeted $200 just to cover the expenses, and I kind of broke down, we're not gonna hit $200, but up to $200, so we're covered. So what we'll be buying would be the giveaways, the water and the ice, and the watermelon.
Just a thought, because I know it's so hot on that day, and they're hot under there, I know. Is there a way we can get them fans or a fan or?
Well, electricity will
maybe
be the issue unless we're gonna run it from the neighbors. Well, no, we do have electric there. I can look into that.
Yeah, look into it, because I saw how much they struggled, and they're not young, for the
No.
most part.
Oh, the band,
The
yes.
band
Oh,
itself, not the
right.
audience, but the band,
Oh,
just
you're
some
right.
sort of cooling, to be, because it's, even though they're not even totally undercover, because depending on the angle of the sun.
Well, what we're gonna do is keep them in the street on Park Row.
Oh, you are, you're not gonna even have them in the pavilion,
Correct.
okay.
Yeah, because they preferred it for social distancing. The band's got a little bit bigger, so it's too tight. And to be honest with you, the acoustics were so much better
Oh,
coming from the street
Mm.
that I think everybody really preferred it. So we'll use the gazebo, the setup for the women's club and
Okay.
there.
all right, I get it.
So I think it actually kind of worked out pretty well last year on the
For
flowers.
some reason missed it.
Where were you?
Yeah, I wasn't there either.
I missed
too.
it somehow.
That's all.
But, a fan could, well, a fan may interfere with the music.
Yeah, well, I agree, but I was just thinking of their health.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
But we
maybe
don't need it if we're not in the pavilion. If they're all out in the open, they're fine.
And I think there was a little bit of a breeze last year, but, yeah, and people wanted to pay for the water, and we said, no, we gave out the water, because it just felt like,
Okay,
very
so
low cost, low key, but a lot of fun.
now there just needs to be two items in this motion, dispersing the 200 that's been assigned, and also the fee for the band out of 96.
The band has always come out of City Hall, and if you don't want to change it now, that's fine. I just leave it there. It's not a material.
So no motions required for that.
Well, for the.
For her,
Yeah,
for her,
But I
for
think
her.
with regard to the band, no. We'll just leave that like so for next time.
Okay, now I have the account number on this
We're
one.
doing 412, or is it economic development on this, or
Oh, it should be arts and humanities. So,
Now, under 402, yes.
402 economic development?
yeah, it's just bringing people.
Yeah.
Bringing outside people into the community.
And we advertise it, bring a picnic.
I think if we, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
It's great.
So listen, in fiscal 22, it was identified under 402. As we move forward into 23, if we want to combine it and put it all in 906, I think that's okay, but we might as well leave it where it was in
Okay.
22. Yeah, that's what I would suggest.
Okay, I move to recommend dispersing $200 out of 402 economic development for the 4th of July celebration.
Second,
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
hope to
you.
see you all.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, no, wait, this,
We've already had people calling and asking, when are we gonna do it?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yes, we are.
sure what happened to me on that one.
Thank you.
Oh, so the next one, we're gonna go to the 3, so now that's the 2. Discussion action regarding the bid for
Okay.
outrun main replacement selection of vendor.
So, I just wanted to report that the bid will close tomorrow in the portal. We have received some interest. So I've received some indications that people have actively researched it. I do not know for sure that anybody's intending to bid, but it closes tomorrow at noon. And then, it's set for public open on Thursday at 10. So Boy will either come here or Zoom in. It would be good to have at least one of you here if it's possible to just be here while we're reviewing them. And then they go to Chris Eckenroad and he will review them at his office and offer a recommendation. And so we had set ourselves as the budget review, as the reviewing people, excuse me, I'm just saying that wrong, the bid committee, bid review committee. But really, well, in this instance, unless there's something untoward, whatever Chris Eckenroad approves will essentially be what we would follow, I would imagine. So I don't know if you want to adjust what we had said last time, that this would be the bid review committee, or.
It should be, practically speaking, I will be driving at that time.
Right.
Yeah, you'll be on, I can make this.
you're talking about tomorrow, there'd be a Zoom meeting?
Thursday at
Oh,
10,
Thursday, too.
right?
I'll come here physically.
It would be nice if we just have one other physical person in the room, because there's, I have a feeling Hoy will Zoom, and, I'll need to look at, bid bonds and that kind of thing, so it'd be nice to have one other. If you can just be here physically, that's awesome. If you want to Zoom, Laurel, that's great.
I can, depending on where I am, I may be able to phone in.
We're just opening it, we're not.
Right, we're just opening it, verifying who responded, reviewing that all the documents are there,
Oh,
And
okay,
and then they get sent to Chris Eckler, and he's gonna review
Got
them
it.
for evaluation of the actual bid, if the person is a appropriate contractor with the qualifications, et cetera, et
so
cetera.
technical review,
And he's gonna make a bid recommendation to us as a town, which that will go to town council on the 13th. And so we as the bid review body may want to adjust our previous assessment of our role, in that we would defer to his recommendation unless anyone finds anything otherwise.
yeah, I think because, especially the more complex bids
Right.
require technical expertise.
Oh, yeah.
I can, I do have somebody coming to my house at 9 o'clock on Thursday, but I think maybe I will certainly try to get done by 10 o'clock.
Well, and if Christian can at least be here to make sure that just to have somebody else in the room, that would really be cool.
Okay.
And if you can come, that's great, and if not, that's fine too. But anyway, so fingers crossed, we get something out of that.
Yeah, how many bids have come?
Well, it's hard to say. I've learned a lot. I can tell that at least 10 people have generated or come in with their profile and looked at it. I learned also that there's a lot of companies that access a bid and then want to get information about who's bidding so they can sell things to them. So if you want to glean out there, there's a couple of those.
Oh, funny,
But I still got a good handful that look like they're actual bidders.
yeah.
So hopefully,
So we don't have any bids in yet?
it doesn't close until tomorrow. And it's not unusual that you don't get them to the last minute. When we did all the work, when we got the big bid for both parts, they all were at the door that morning, starting like an hour before they showed up.
Okay.
So I don't find it, it's nerve-wracking, but I don't find it unusual.
Mhm.
And if we don't get one, then we'll just have to rebid it,
It sounds like it's likely there are already some people that are,
hopefully, yep.
okay, so, I don't think there's a formal motion.
No,
It's just more
Yeah.
discussion.
Right.
Yeah. But I'll be here on Thursday,
thank you.
unless I'm sick or something.
Well, let's try not to do that.
Why would anybody be sick these days?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, next, discussion action for, this is redirecting $2,000 from we'll talk about how we do this, but from the 2022 budget, parking funding to street improvement.
I'm very confused by this line.
Well, what I was trying to do is, I know that I am on the parking committee, and there's monies that we did not use, several $1,000s this year.
Okay, well, what are we doing it for? Let's talk about what we're doing it for first.
So what we're doing it for is, if we open up the attachment, this was I got talking to the mayor in March about this beautification. We put it in the budget thing, and then I moved a little, probably quicker than I should have. So we've got some things started on that project, and you can see that's right now, that's the dollar amount, that's probably what it's going to be, 1726.51. Well, I don't have a receipt yet for one of the things, still working on that. These are the in two sections. One is for the telephone pole on the head of the stairway down to Potomac Street. We're going to try a prototype of hanging baskets. So that's the materials for it. We have not done anything with them yet. Okay. There are, just so you're aware, there are hangers on the poles. They're too small.
and they're really not put on very well. And some of them are actually bent. I don't know how they got bent, but, so we're gonna remove those.
Okay, so this includes them already planted or not?
Yes.
Okay, and you said there's another invoice?
Yeah, there's another invoice for the tanks. I don't have that. That's why it's 125. That's roughly it. It's,
Oh, I see.
It's some
Okay.
tax or
Okay.
something on it. I haven't gotten a receipt. I look. I can't find it. So I have to call the company to get it.
So, I mean, there's plenty of money in the 906. I don't think that we need to. Well, first of all, you can't, if you're gonna move it in, if you're gonna take it out of 906 ultimately, you can't rob Peter to pay Paul, because 906 is its own fund.
Oh, that makes sense.
Okay, if you were gonna move money from parking to streets, that's general fund money. Okay, you could take something out of one and put it in the other. But if you're calling this beautification, which is what this concept was very generally submitted under, which actually is in the fiscal 23 budget, not the fiscal 22 budget, then it's 906 beautification. And there's enough money in that fund that we can make it under that. I think we just have to officially accept it as a project and do so.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we will be to recommend designating $2,000 out of 906, is that what
Right,
it is?
to cover this, flower basket project.
Just so you're aware, if you don't know, the part that is done is the stairway, light posts, the three, they were basket. Larry and I put them up. We put up the brackets and we put up the baskets, and we had the flowers, the succulents. They're succulents in them. They look pretty
Nice.
And now I've got Larry. Just so you're all aware, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can remind him the water. If you miss the watering, we can lose them.
Yeah.
They can die.
Did you end up using those water absorbing crystals?
We didn't in those because that stuff's real expensive. I was saving that for the hanger, the high ones.
Gotcha.
These are easy to water.
So is there a second project then associated with this that we'll look at in another month or so? Or
Yeah,
are we-
there'll be more, but right now, here's the problem the town has for watering down in Lower Town. I'm not aware, Larry's not aware of any water available.
Public water, yeah,
Public
there's
water.
no town owned.
It's owned by us, down in Lower Town. That's a problem.
Yeah.
So we gotta look into that. This is morphed into a bigger project than I thought. Even when you get the water into his tanks, his big tank on his truck, that's gravity feed right now. So you can get the trees that are along the street on the ground.
Get it.
But when you're trying to get something up 10, 12 feet up in the air, he has to have a pump.
Yeah.
So we have to get into
Oh,
a
nice.
pump. This thing has gotten, after I did it, and there's a water tanks built inside of these hangars, but they still have to be filled.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I thought maybe we can lower them, but after dealing with these smaller planters, they're like 60 pounds. They're very heavy, and I can imagine that thing's gonna be close to 100 pounds per basket with water. So I thought maybe we can lower them, with a hook, and a hole. I don't think so.
Very sturdy things, I would assume, since they're 100 pounds above people's
Yeah,
heads.
everything here is done to commercial quality. This is why some of you, it seems expensive, but it's because it's very heavy duty iron. It is. And we're trying the prototype on one, because I don't want to be spending all this money and we can't really do it. We can, it's okay with the power company as long as we tell them what we're doing, basically.
Right.
But it's bigger than I thought. This project is working. So, and that's why I like Deb's form. So we'll talk about that.
all right.
Okay, well, I'd like to move to recommend designating $2,000 from 906 Arts and Humanities to cover expenses for the town stairway hanging basket beautification project.
I'll second that.
Does you need to say what year it came
Oh,
from?
yes,
It's gonna be
thank
this
you. Fiscal year
22.
22.
Well, I'll remove my second.
I think it's,
Just-
for fiscal year 2020.
I heard it. Okay, discussion? I second it, so I'll go with my second. Discussion, all those in favor?
to move on. All right, so one thing I learned, the town actually has, I'm gonna pass these out. I don't know if it came from you, Deb, or Patty, or what, this form, but I like it.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna redo this form, I was gonna do a form, and then I found out, I was here last week, and you actually have a form.
Yeah.
Though I'm not so sure it's being utilized, but I thought of a few improvements, and then I think we should push to do it, because I really think it's important. For instance here, this project that we just approved here, there's an ongoing expense with this. You don't just buy this stuff and it's good forever. No, you have to replace the plant. So this is a $400 to $500 every year we're gonna have to, so that needs to be put on the form, I think. That there's going to be an ongoing, expense on this particular project, because it's live plants that don't make it through the winter. I asked Meadow Farms.
So we'll take them down and stuff then in the winter?
Yeah, it depends what people want to do. We can remove the basket part with the jute thing, or whatever they call that lining. We could actually decorate them for a Christmas theme.
Yeah.
But no plants,
Right.
We would just, and we might be able to plant them in our park someplace, but they may very well die. They might. So but we could plant them someplace.
Yeah, I guess it depends if they're annuals or perennials.
But they are artists down in Meadow Farms who did this, and they were very reasonable when they charged us. This isn't possible to bid out, because I don't know if there are people to do this.
Well, it's an amount that you don't really.
Yeah, it's under, and but when we get into more of them, it might be more of a.
Yeah, but maybe if it's done serially, if it's part of the project.
Well, they were all specially picked, and they know it was for the town of Harpers Ferry, and they really did an extra special job for us. So, but I was going to suggest on the form, it's just adding a few things on it. I just thought minor.
Before that, how does this form actually function?
It sits in a binder.
Yeah,
in here.
so this was developed as you can see, as a maintenance work order form. So sometimes things would just pop up, we need it done internally, or somebody would call and say, oh, this is broken in the town. And so this was a means of communicating to our maintenance staff that there was an issue that needed to be dealt with. So it does sit in a binder out front, and the idea is that periodically, at least once a week, your maintenance staff reviews this with the mayor, and decisions can be made, research can be done, you get things documented here, or it can come over to financial office for approval. Where can we expense this? What do we have to bid it? Do we not have to bid it? Blah, blah, blah.
So they come in, there's a triage process, and then.
Right, that's what's supposed to happen.
I don't think it's happening.
It's not happening.
So this is something that I could visit with Larry. He's just going to have to come in here once a week, and he's going to have to. This needs to be written out so everybody knows. Like this project, this was flying under the radar, because I was kind of doing it a bit with him, but mostly me. So that was flying under the radar, and that shouldn't happen. This should be all written out.
And really, the mayor should be involved in helping him prioritize what his duties are and when X project gets done versus Y project. And so not only reviewing it with him, but also maybe with the mayor would be good.
Yes. And I see this, I think the title should be like town project / maintenance work, because there's projects too. Like this was a project. There's going to be projects on this building sometime in the future. And there'll be things that we need to,
I sort of look at it as two different things, well,
Do you?
different but associated. So, the project ideally would be, if the opportunity was there to plan for it, would be part of what we budget for, right? So just as, Parks and Recs comes with a big budget request, but they have a bunch of projects underneath it, this could be a project for the floral baskets, and there's a project for some other piece, or some other piece of beautification.
So is there another document required where you
Well,
have
no,
one
but
for
just what is normally done for budgeting agenda requests.
Right.
Because first, this is a budgeting thing. Now, and then, here's the work order to activate the budgeting request. And so, but this also serves a different purpose, in that if somebody says, we need to have our lights replaced, or we need, or
I don't know, a step's broken in the lower town. That's also the purpose of this.
Got it.
So I see it as two different things. You have your budgeting thing, and then you have the execution of work.
I think if you just added it and called it the project and maintenance work order.
Yeah.
And in the description, you just put like what projects it's
Right.
part of, and if it's not, it's a
But
one-off.
this shouldn't take the place of the process that we go
Oh,
through.
no,
Yeah.
no.
And so I sort of see it as two problems.
But I guess what is as we begin to do more and more maintenance, more projects,
Mhm.
I think mentally I'll have a hard time keeping up with it.
Yeah,
Right.
And some of them are, like, we talked about, we get it all done, let's say it's a project we talk about now, but it doesn't actually execute until January.
yeah.
Right.
So now, see, that's why I like it in a,
And
Or
there's
you can go back
a,
and see what the details were.
well, and we guys gotta use it.
and there's a log.
And
in
a log,
there,
there's a
And there's
book.
a number that gets assigned to it. So there's a way of tracking it. If the mayor and Larry are working with that on a regular basis, they can prioritize work and schedule it.
That makes sense to me.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's, for instance, we've got a project coming up on these moving mailboxes and reinstalling them. Well, that's perfect for this form, and right now, it's like so nebulous without
And I'll say,
it, so.
we're gonna be talking about this later, but it's tied, like the Public Works Administrator, whatever it's going to be called, this is the sort of thing that
Yes,
they could
exactly. That
help
could be
track on a
helpful.
sheet, you know, on a Gantt
Mhm.
chart or something like
Yeah.
that, and this would feed into that, but that's
So
in
you-
the future.
I agree. So you changed the title, and was there anything else?
Yeah, I was gonna
Really-
suggest, when we talk about, I think you have it on here, but was, like long-term material costs, and
Oh, okay, ongoing.
ongoing, like
Okay.
what is potentially, if we approve this, if we have this project, what's it gonna cost us every year to do?
Right.
I mean, just so we know it, so we can start thinking about it.
Right.
Um,
I would suggest the other thing that we should add now that we've evolved, is something about is bidding required, or something regarding
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah, total
Okay.
dollar amount.
Yeah.
Total project dollar
Or
amount.
bid, and maybe we can just reference bid level, and then that can lead a person to the book.
And I don't see this getting into 2 pages, I mean, just to get into materials required, then you're looking at, well, you're gonna have a subcontractors, you're gonna have renting of equipment, this thing could morph.
Well,
So we could just continue on the back,
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
ideally, it's kept to one page, just because this is a working
but you could
document.
easily turn it over, make a drawing, or you could make a materials list, or,
Oh, yeah, and he says, you know,
Yeah.
describe on back. You know.
Yeah.
But I keep getting told about things we need to do in town.
Yeah.
And see, I could probably run to this and write these things down, and then you can start figuring out what needs to be
Yep.
done.
absolutely.
Because I get 4 or 5 of these every other week
Mm,
from
Yep.
people, and I can't possibly remember them all.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
I kinda like this, I would like this, just even as a paper form.
Yeah.
Well, why don't, I think that document may live on the hard drive where Berlissa works.
Oh,
Or I think Rachel might have done that, so maybe you could check with Berlissa and see if she could implement your changes. And then we could work on it internally as a form, and
yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't think we need to do any, I'll just do it. Okay. All right, so discussion and number 5, well, whatever number we're on, next one is discussion and action for resetting the fiscal year 2023 spending threshold chart.
so you should have received a draft. And part of our protocol now is that every fiscal year, this gets reset. The idea is that you just want to, as a council, be reviewing, is this amount of money appropriate for purchases to be sent through without you seeing the checks, et cetera, and at what point, so what I've done is I've also tried to consolidate and refine some of the wording in the paragraphs. And some of the reasons for that is as this is a fairly new process, and we've worked through it for about 6 months now, there have been a few things where I've kind of been like, should this go on the list of checks that need to go to council or not? And those have been things that lots of times aren't necessarily purchases, which is a key point. So for instance, let's say that someone submits a billing permit and then they decide to withdraw it. Well, we've we've cashed their check, we owe them that money back. That's not a purchase, it's a reimbursement to an application that was withdrawn. Another thing might be, items where, so I wanted to change that word item to purchases, where I've kind of, where I've put it in red. It used to say item, and I made it purchases, because I felt like that was a significant.
Yeah,
Right.
no, if it's a reimbursement, it's not like there's funding that has
Yeah.
been earmarked that needs to be approved.
Right, exactly. So, and then I just tried to consolidate the wording, mostly because I wanted to keep this to one page. I was getting very tiny. So, and then I did update a few of the maximum per month billing based on things that I see coming. A lot of it just mostly had to do with fuel,
Yes.
chemicals that we know that's going up, and it's also a bit of an unknown. So we may be able to adjust it back, but right now it's still a little bit of an unknown. I added the cleaning service.
Yes, yeah, that's good.
So.
And all these are incremental, or
Yes.
based on what there's nothing that's like, wow, this tripled, that kind of thing.
No, and they're based on what we see, what pattern that has accrued over this year and is budgeted for in next year. And
What is
so
the legal, what is that? Legal?
that's that would be Bowles Rice for general fund and Hoy for water. So that means that, like these amounts would be normal and ordinary questions. That's like, so the idea, this is the maximum amount of normal and ordinary questions and issues that you have going on with your legal team during a month. And so the idea is if it's over this, you as a town council would like to see that bill and approve it before it goes out to the legal vendor.
Okay. Yeah, I understand.
So this is, if you are happy with this, then this you would be recommending for council to approve at the next meeting to become the new chart that would be active July 1.
I move to recommend resetting the fiscal year 2023 spending threshold chart as submitted.
I'll second that.
I have a question.
Discussion.
So Hoy, does he get actually paid by USDA? By the, what I mean is that there was, in this project, wasn't there a certain amount of money that was set aside for legal? He was on the team.
You mean all the water project at the plant right now? That water project, or?
Yeah, the infrastructure project.
Okay, well, that was all addressed when we closed on the loan. So monies that we paid him over the 10 years that project evolved until we actually got to bid it, became part of the soft cost reimbursement that we were given from the loan because we paid him already. And so fees that came all the way up to the closing date and the invoices that we had to that, then we got reimbursed for that because we were able to prove that they were associated with that loan.
Okay.
But going forward, no, the loan is closed. And so, and now as we move forward, and whole other projects, we move towards the infrastructure project, we'll start tallying anything that he may be working with us on specific to that. And for the same purpose of soft cost reimbursement to maybe a new loan, but we've been reimbursed for that and we're not, we don't owe him anything for that now, for that project.
No, I'm not saying we owe him for the project. I'm just wondering if his continuing, we continue to use his services for the project. Does he get paid by the project?
We're not paying, in what capacity are we paying him for the
Like,
project?
for instance, we draw money out or once a month we pay Alvarez, and that comes from USDA.
But Hoy has not submitted any bills to us that have to do with that project during the duration of the project. I mean, his work is done with regard to that project. He
Okay.
worked to help us come to the point of being able to bid
Yeah.
and bond it. And now his work is done. We have no legal issues going on with that project right now.
So what's in
Yeah. So
this is just the ongoing.
Yeah,
operating
just
Yeah,
like
whenever
if
we
we
need
have
it
to
for
talk to him about, now, like Elks Run, okay,
See,
I had to talk.
I did not realize that he was not being paid anymore from the project.
Yeah, because he's
until now.
not doing any more work with regard to it.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
the things that he talks to us about now are Elks Run, but that's completely out of the scope of the USDA. And, you know, if we have an employee issue, or if we have, I don't know, I talked to him about purchasing one time, you know, that kind of stuff. But that's all expenses of ordinary day-to-day things.
but is it possible that we can still utilize money from the USDA to pay him on project matters?
No, because his work with that project is done. And he is not budgeted into, like the USDA has a budget of expenses that are gonna be paid on this project. They are all given out left to GDF and Alvarez. Boyd's name is not on that list of potential expenses because his work is done. And we've paid him, and USDA's reimbursed us for what we paid him already.
Has he reached the amount that he got paid? Did he reach some budget amount and they said this is enough?
No, I mean, so whatever he invoiced us that had to do with that project, we turned all those invoices over to him. And then on the closing document, there's a list, and it's Law Offices of Hoy Shingleton, and it shows how much money all those invoices totaled up to. And then we got a check that included that amount of money. Same for Cox Holiday, same for Bulls Rice.
Yeah. Right, I
But
understand
then their
that.
work with that project is completely done.
Well, that just changes my attitude toward, hiring him for jobs. I had no idea that he was not being paid from the project, so that's good to know.
Well, he was paid from the project, just the scope of work had to do with the initial setup
Well,
and the rest.
he was, but currently, when we call him, he's now paid from water funds, I guess.
Yeah, and
yeah.
always has been. That is not anything
Well,
that
he
changed.
didn't get hired until this project happened. It's not like,
Well, I don't know, 10 years ago, I don't know, but he's been on staff with us ever since I've been here.
Ever since I've been in.
yeah, he was hired to do this project. That's when,
Oh,
actually,
okay.
we considered several different lawyers, and he was the only one who was really close by,
okay.
and that's why he got hired.
Well, and his
Project.
expertise with water utilities is very valuable. And
Oh,
so
yeah,
that's,
sure, it
I mean, that's
certainly
why
is.
like sometimes we call Ken for a matter, but then if it's water, we pretty much always call him.
Yeah, like legal
Yeah.
and accountants, what you spend, you save immensely from having good advice.
Yeah, my only point is just that now I understand that
Okay.
he is being paid as he does it from the water budget,
Yeah.
which I did not know
And-
until now.
And on the water budget, there is a line that says legal fees and something kind of studies. And that's where his line item is with, there's another little thing that happens every month that goes in there. And so this number is a result of taking that number and dividing it over 12, chopping it back a little bit.
Yeah,
So that
I
we-
assumed it was an average.
Yeah, so we keep an
Monthly
eye on it, that
average,
it's
yeah.
not popping out of
I see.
line. If it's popping out of line, you've got an issue that you as a council should know about, something spiking over there that's causing a lot of costs.
It's not material, not the
Right.
usual, hey, just wondering about this. kind of
Right.
thing.
Okay.
Okay.
So there's a motion and a second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, threshold chart is done. Okay, so next, this is the discussion action for the new purchase of a 2022
Mhm.
Ford Explorer. We ordered it so long ago, the Explorer police vehicle, which I understand, I've seen it, it's here, and it's being converted to a police car. It's not there all the way.
Yes.
Stripes, lights,
Decals, all that.
communication equipment, yeah, all that.
So it doesn't look like the family mobile. It's like
Right.
something for law,
Yeah.
enforcing law.
Can't believe we got it.
All right, so, I hope I have the right set of minutes in front of me. I was pulling a bunch of minutes today. Oh, here it is, okay. June 7, 2021, town council moved to approve the purchase of it says a 2021 Ford Cruiser, it became a 2022, in the amount of $49,000. And is actually set to be a loan. We learned that we changed that so that we could pay that out along with the one that was already on loan, to pay it out completely. So, this is in the budget for fiscal '22, the invoice came in at $46,287.69. So, this will go, on the check approval list for town council next time. And I'm letting you know, I will notate the date at which it was. But the trick is that we have already changed it through our budgeting, that you're paying it out.
Okay, but so do we need to do the recommendation, or is it just kind of part of the thing?
I think it's really just awareness, and that it's
Okay.
gonna be, in case you need to assist town council members, it's gonna be on the agenda,
No, it's 46, 280, and 69.
287 and
Ah.
69.
And where will it come from?
It will come from public safety. The number is 976.
All right. Noted. Literally just noted it.
Good,
Okay,
all right.
is that it for that one? Okay, next item, discussion action for the payoff of the 2001 Ford Explorer police van.
So this is the vehicle that arrived the year before that, and we entered into a loan agreement on. We decided it was in the best interest, based on consultation with legal and state auditor's office, to pay that loan off in this fiscal year. So I have talked with the bank tomorrow. Today was our payment in May. So tomorrow they will run me a payoff amount, which I'm estimating to be around $32,000. And then I will cut that check, and that will also go to council. So you probably should make this a motion to recommend payoff of this 2021 vehicle loan up to, I'm gonna say, $34,000, just to be safe. And I'll have the check included.
And the bank name is?
Bank of Charlestown.
Just paying off the bill.
And that'll also be from 976 public safety.
All right, I move to recommend paying off to the Bank of Charlestown, that's the fraud motion. Recommend payoff of the 2021 Ford Explorer police vehicle loan to Bank of Charlestown in the amount of
Up to 34,000.
$34,000 from 976 public safety.
I'll second that. Discussion. Those in favor? All right.
Okay, page 2.
Yes, okay, oh, this is a big one. Okay, discussion and action regarding the Employee Continuous Service Recognition Incentive Program. Storm, you keep typing there, but Storm took a lot from the state program. They have an incentive program for the employees, and then he took from Charlestown
A little bit.
and then there was one more place.
And part of it was from
Our
Yeah,
discussion, our
right.
discussion. So, he put this together, and so we can talk about it.
And I'll say that I, independent of this, ran my formulation, and I was happy to see that this supported how I formulated. I was
The
like,
system works.
It works.
that was good. I understood it, I believe.
Yeah, hang on, let me pull it out.
Yeah.
Just so we can just walk through it all together.
Yeah, so Laurel, this program kind of came from,
The mayor.
the mayor, but we recognized we had a problem with our year-end Christmas bonus program, the $25, and it just really wasn't working.
The state auditor's office
They
doesn't
didn't care
recommend
for
it.
it.
Not a best practice.
Not a best practice. So he had seen what the city of Martinsburg was doing, which was just a similar program to this, and so we developed our own that fits Harper's Ferry.
And I'll just walk us all from
Yeah.
the top bottom. So at the top, it's just a brief description of what the program is. We want to encourage long-term employment by providing this incentive. And one of the decisions we made as Budget and Finance was to have it be for those who have completed 3 years of continuous service And that's a number that swung from town to town. That's the number we arrived at. And then there's the definition of eligible town employee, and it's pegged to those who are eligible for membership in any state retirement system of the state of West Virginia or any other retirement plan. But that elected and appointed officials are not part of this.
Right.
Can I ask a question there? So when you say they're eligible, let's say we have an employee who might work for another agency in the state, and when that happens, you are not you're not able to enroll in the state retirement plan in both entities. So they might work 20 hours there a week and 20 hours here a week, but they're not eligible here. So though they are technically eligible because of 20 hours, but because they're enrolled over there, they can't do it. So in that case, I'm asking if you would quantify that person as being eligible for this program because they're working 20 hours.
It shouldn't be. No.
Okay.
Or there'd be a contradiction because the next section specifically says that you have to have 0.5 full-time equivalent.
Okay, but I'm saying that they do.
Oh, they
20
do.
hours a week. If they're working 20 hours a week here, and maybe they're working 30 hours a week here, but they're still working 20 hours a week here.
Oh yeah, for as long as they're,
Okay.
No, it is fine. It is
Okay.
fine.
And even if during some period of time somebody begins to work 20 hours a time and that a week, and that makes them eligible, but they aren't yet enrolled for whatever reason.
I'm not following.
So let's say they are working, they've been working 13 hours a week, but then their job has expanded and they're working 20 hours a week for a couple of months. And then the council says, okay, well, now you've been working 20 hours a week and we have to enroll you into the plan, into the retirement plan. So I would take this to be that when that person began working 20 hours a week, then that's how it's included.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I got it.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. I just want to make
Yes.
sure we're on the same page.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And Laura, just so you know, the $60, where it came from, it came from what the state is using, so we're using the same number. And they've been using $60 for a while.
Yeah, so the two numbers really that were around in the comparables was 50 and 60. And, given that, especially now with inflation, that those numbers have been static, but it's not out of scale for this type of program.
And the purpose of the program is to award people for staying with the town of Harpers Ferry and working for us.
And the numbers were run, and that it's not an extraordinary amount.
Yeah, I don't want to jump topic because I know you were starting to go through here, but so I'll give you the numbers, but you.
Okay, I'll keep going. And then the definition of continuous years of service. So there's the full-time equivalent calculation that gets done. So basically, it's only intended to be for those that the town considers to be full-time or more than half-time, put it that way. And then if you're not 100% full-time as an employee, but you're between that 50% and 100%, then it's prorated based on a calculation that is described further down in the document. And then years of service does not include if there's a no pay status. So if there's unauthorized leave, a leave of absence due to personal, medical, or parental reasons, or suspended. The exception is military service, that would still be counted, or workers' comp, which would still be counted towards your tenure as an employee. So if you add it to that pile, it gets considered when doing the calculation of how many years would be paid this incentive.
Mm-hmm. It's once a year, and we pay in July.
Yes. And it does, I put in something that says this excludes any service anywhere else. So that was because this was mostly drawn from the state policy where you can move from agency to agency and it would commute with you.
Because you were still working for the state as you moved around.
Right, but we're a discrete entity, so just making clear that if someone, say, we hired someone from Martinsburg or the state, that would not port over because we want to encourage longevity with the town.
The only exception to that would be is if you move from waterworks to the general fund.
It's still within the town.
Yeah.
Or within the town's finances.
Right.
And then, I tried to boil this down to the simplest version
Mhm.
possible. Unfortunately, some of it just simply is not simple. This part, I think, is though. So every eligible employee with 3 or more full years receives, you get this recognition payment equal to $60 times the employee's years of service without limit, meaning if you're here 20 years, you live to be 100 and you've worked here 80 years, it'll be that incentive amount times your years. And then the chart just shows examples. I added the example of years of service 1 to 2 not eligible, 0, just to make it perfectly clear.
Very clear, it's really helpful, yeah.
And then so on and so on. And I think presenting it this way, it does show you, hey, if you're here for 20 years, it's going to be
Right.
$1,200.
Right.
And not even counting for inflation.
Yeah.
And then the section that describes the annual increase of the recognition amount, that as you accrue another full year of service, that, I'm sorry, running ahead of my skis at this point. Right, so for each new year that you have accrued, there's another $60 for that fiscal year that you will get. And I'm looking because I have a parenthetical where I think we need to make a decision. Right, so the second bullet here, the town council will first grant the annual recognition payment to all eligible employees. The question is just a technical one. Is the authority for doing this through the town council, or is it from the mayor? And this is because the state version had a very specific,
Well,
because it had been from whomever the supervising authority was how it was stated.
Though, I don't know, this is money it's money, and the town council should be.
That's what I think.
and the town council in our place is in charge of hiring and firing. I mean, the mayor is the administrator, but really it's the town council. And so it seems to me it's one of those things where, just like the COLA, just like the threshold thing, June, we say, all right, we're rocking and rolling with this. Do you want to adjust the amount or not? Or,
Right.
that kind of
That's
thing.
the town council decision.
That's the council, right?
Yes.
And it just goes through, okay, we're gonna do it July 1, we're gonna do it July 1. I think so.
Even the bonus program was done, I believe, through the town council.
It was, yeah. For the Christmas gifts, it was done, yeah. They weren't bonuses, they were Christmas.
And then,
Just
Yes,
to be
I now
clear.
remember, yes, I now
Just to be
remember.
clear.
before my time.
Where
And
does
then,
the money coming from, like in the water budget, where would it come from?
Yeah, so, so I've run an example for this year, and it will come out of their wages. And the total exposure to the water department is, it looks like right now, from what I can tell, $1,440 in total of wages.
So it comes out of the in and out.
Of their wages, yeah. So it's not, for each, the highest individual is at 600, the lowest is at 180. I mean, it's not a
Right,
big,
it's clear, it's not like a huge
yeah, but it's a
amount of money.
meaningful amount.
right. And for the
Yeah.
police department, it'll be about 2,000, and the general fund, these individuals have a little more detail with regard to FTE that I have to research, but the maximum exposure on that would be $600, so. at this moment, yeah.
And then describing the schedule of payment, this is during the month of July, the payment will be made. And then adjusting years of service for part-time employees, this is the one that's just kind of complicated. But it's basically you take each year that the employee is employed and you develop their full-time equivalent. And if it is at least 0.5 for that year, then that gets added to the pile that gets considered for your total years of service. And then you just simply take each year and each year's calculation, you add them all up together, and you get, as you see, total service 6 years and 7 months. This number gets rounded down. You have to cross the next whole number threshold in order to have another year of accrued service. So if you had 6 years and 7 months, that's 6 years total of service, and that is what gets multiplied by the $60 per service year. So it becomes a total of $360.
So, let me ask one other question. Let's assume that on line 2 of your example, where it says 0.5 FTE, 2 years and 4 months.
Oh, yes,
Okay, let's say that that was 0.4 instead of 0.5
not eligible. It was for that year.
for that. Okay.
So
Gotcha.
you multiply, right, and it's difficult because you're
So
multiplying.
so we're talking about, so it's when you are working at the 50% that it starts to become eligible, not the 3rd year that you physically worked.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and there can be a year in between, let's say
Oh,
someone
right.
took their hours down.
Yep.
And you were at 0.4
Yep.
for that year.
Yep.
That year would not count. But then, if there's a year where it's 0.8, 0.7, that each year you multiply the time during that year to arrive at how much
Gotcha.
that applies.
Okay, all right, that's what I thought, but then I doubted myself.
No, this is like, I tried very hard to come up with something that was
No, you did great.
clear, but it's just a
Yeah.
complicated
Yep.
thing.
I mean, you just don't want disgruntled employees feeling like, I earned this, and now you're not giving it to me. I don't want
Yes.
that. Here's the rules, sweet,
And
black and white.
yeah, and that's the tricky part with the part-time is multiplying years and months by 0.7. Like there's this extra process you have to do that's hard to visualize.
But the good thing is, I figured out from getting it set up is now that we know that we're gonna do it, once you go back and you evaluate it on everybody who's been here, then you just keep moving forward.
Right, once it's set up,
Once it's set up,
simple.
it's not bad.
It's very simple.
Yeah, it started.
Yeah, I'm going to just ask about your table here, so still, like in your examples here, so let's take the 4th line, 0.8 FTE, work that for, basically, this person would have to work, wait a minute,
I'm sorry, which chart are you looking at?
okay. Hang on a second, I just had to go back.
It's kind of tricky.
Okay, say take the 0.3, that's the easiest one to do. The last table, part-time employees.
Yes.
So if someone's working 0.3, they don't actually become, and they do that year after year, 0.3, right? So that accumulates, or it's got to be 0.5 in 1 year in order to be added.
Yes, in fact, I think that it's actually, when you do the calculation, you're looking at each month. And if in that month you were at 0.6, or at point, if that month you were at 0.3, then that month
Doesn't count.
would not count.
So you have to be 0.5 or above for it to count in any month.
Correct.
And then it will be added.
Yes. And that these FTEs are cumulative across, if you look at all of this, is all the years that someone had worked for the town.
And what about if they are missing time due to sick leave or something? How does that figure into FTE? Because this isn't, how does that, I just wonder, how does that enter into it?
I don't know the employment law here, but I would assume that if it's paid time off, that it does count. But again, I don't know employment law.
Okay. So,
Yeah, I think as long as it's full-time equivalent employment. So if you if you're scheduled to work 40 hours, but 30 of them are sick and you're getting paid for that, you're still fully employed at a 40-hour week schedule.
okay.
But if it's unpaid leave,
If it's unpaid leave, yeah.
well, that's up at the top where it describes that as an exclusion.
Okay, so if we have to be,
Well, actually, no, it doesn't. It's talking about if there's a period. Years of service excludes any period in which an employee is in a no-pay status, such as unauthorized leave, a leave of absence, for personal, medical, or parental reasons or suspension.
But that
So,
would be a leave of absence if you're off due to medical reasons and you
if it's above and
basically-
byou your paid
I think
leave.
if it's a long-term thing, I think that's what they're talking about. You know, if you have no accrued, if you have no
It
accrued
turns
leave that you
into
can take,
it turns into a leave of absence if you have used up all your sick leave.
and all
Yes.
your vacation and everything
And
else,
so
yeah.
then it doesn't count.
Yes,
I think
correct.
that's true.
I see. Thank you.
We're jumping back down again. Right, so this is the employees in a no-pay status, and which actually covers, I think, what we just discussed. Yeah, it does. And then there's a calculation, if someone during the year is no longer employed by the town. I think it's worth going over the nuts and bolts of it, but there is a formula that's prescribed for how that is paid. Probably the most complicated of all the elements of this program, where you tally up what the total service is, but then the modifier is how much of that particular year the employee worked. So in this case, if it was 1/4 of the way through, you would multiply those total years by 0.25 to arrive at, and then multiply that by the $60 for that final payment. And then the final thing is just stating that, and this is one of the only sort of legalistic boilerplate things that I kept in, was that the increment pay shall be included when computing the rate of pay for overtime payment for employees covered by the Fair Labor Standards Act who work in excess of 40 hours in an work week. So it is considered to be part of pay, is how I interpret that. Again, I don't know employment law here, but that one seemed like an important detail.
So this separating employee, that was in the state.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything in here was, except the only thing I pulled out of Charlestown was, I think, the statement at the top, and I modified that. So almost all of it came out of the state, but subtracting out things that were particular to how their governance and employment systems work.
Were you saying for the overtime that basically the overtime counts and gives you, I don't understand that.
So this has to do with what's the basis of what you will earn in overtime. So if your wages are 20,000, whatever it is, that you would also add this increment pay to the amount by which, say, what your pay would be for overtime. So time and a half would include that $20,000 plus this increment, is how I interpreted this.
And it's only separating employees, only when you're leaving, right?
No, this
No.
is the general thing.
Oh, John.
So this is, no, they don't, so wait a minute. Yeah, let's go. So I thought you were just saying this in terms of just how it's reported as it's pay that's included.
Well, the way I read it out of the state was that the Department of Labor ruled that increment pay needs to be, what it says, needs to be included when computing the rate of pay for overtime payment.
I think it's a reporting tool. So what they're saying is you have to include these wages when you are reporting the wages.
I see.
I think that's what they're saying, that it goes into their total wages essentially, and they're putting it in for overtime payment, but I don't know that that's really.
Might need to ask, because
Yeah.
it was such a specific thing where it cited
Yeah.
a very specific,
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
But I think it mostly has to do with reporting wages, which we're required to do occasionally.
okay.
Yeah.
And that's the whole story. I set the effective date on this, and the draft is June 13, if this is something that we end up recommending. So that
It's really a fine piece of work.
Yep. Yeah, you really, really wrote it well. Thank you so much.
Cool.
And so no one can ever, just to be clear, no one ever gets more than $60 a year, no matter what. Is that correct?
Per year
Per
of
year of
service.
service. No one would ever get more than 60 per year of
In the
service.
future, the council could decide to
Change
make
it,
the
right.
amount different.
But they would change it unilaterally for everyone.
You can't pick on an employee or even a part of our
Right.
employees, it has to be all.
It's specifically not, now, there is a clause, I
You
didn't
can't
read it,
discriminate.
that the town could also in the future adopt a performance-based bonus. This is not that. This
Yes,
is,
this is, right, this is for just longevity.
yes,
And from what I understand, this will be approved each year.
yes, it should
This
be.
isn't like, we approve it, the town council approves it now, forever, that's it, no.
Well, it's not,
It'll come up every year, we'll just do it like the bonus, just like the Christmas deal that we did.
well, I didn't write that into the policy, but as a matter of practice, it should.
You know, when I read this statement or phrase of applying recognition payment when computing overtime, in my head, I was thinking, you mean you can get, if you worked overtime, you're more than, you basically,
Oh, I see what
you're
you're
like,
saying.
you're more than
FTE.
1.0.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, okay, but I kind of looked at it that way to see, is that what they're saying? But so that's why I asked the question, so you can never make more than 60 a year in this
Right.
current
Right.
policy.
Right.
You can't like work overtime and then get
Oh, no.
even more.
No.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, it's good. It just means that if somebody worked 9 months, but they work a lot of overtime in that year, they could be, well, it's over half anyway, so
Well,
they get
I
the
don't know
60
how-
anyway.
I don't know how T is calculated, but I think the maximum years of service you can earn in 1 year is 1 year.
But I'm just saying it's less.
That might be a good sentence to add here, just because it's just so clear. Like, you cannot earn more than 1 year service in 1 year, no matter what you
That would be
do.
reasonable, but
Yeah,
As, you know what I'm saying?
I like it.
It would just
I'll
really.
put that out to the chart, the first chart. Well, because it sounds like a thought, but it's not. The maximum,
So do we need to have this looked at?
Yeah, I think, oh, that's a good point. We can send it off to
It should be pending-
review,
pending
pending legal
review.
review. And I would also, like, when are you leaving to go out there?
Thursday.
Oh, okay. Well, I would like to review at least one or two people on my sheet as to how I formulated them
Yeah, put it
with
through.
you. To make sure that I understand the way you wrote it.
And I'll be reachable, I'm not going off the map.
Okay,
It's just the days when I'm driving.
right, okay. So maybe today's Tuesday. Maybe tomorrow afternoon, if I don't know if you're
And
around.
if not, I'll still be able to
Okay.
to do it, just, I won't be as responsive
Okay.
as I should endeavor to.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so it would be pending legal review for adoption in June for implementation fiscal 23 July.
Yep. Correct, they did the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was typing, so I didn't hear it.
I'm not allowed to do that.
Well, if you heard it, you say it.
No, I can't say it, it's too fast.
I'll say it, though I can't come up with it. And I'll make no pretense about that, but I would like to make a motion that we, Budget and Finance recommend to the town council that they accept the continuous service recognition incentive program pending legal review. Anything else for pending?
And to be payable.
In July.
In
Oh.
July of
For fiscal
2023.
Yes, yes.
Oh.
22. You're gonna say
23.
23.
To begin, is that called fiscal 23? So
Correct.
to begin, to be applied in, with the first payout in July of fiscal 23.
I'll second that. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. I think it's a great program. I think it's gonna make a difference. Okay, next on discussion action regarding the fiscal year 2022 revised 3 budget for the water department.
So, do you want to follow along with the spreadsheet, or do you want me to share screen? Because none of you are actually in the meeting, so you won't be able to see it unless you have yourself loaded into the meeting, unless you want to just open up the spreadsheet and follow along.
Yeah, I'll follow along.
Okay, we'll try that. All right, so I'm gonna read the summary of this one, and just because there's so many moving parts with the water department right now, it's really good to have budget and finance dialed into this. On this spreadsheet, you do have both, you have in the blue column, fiscal 22 revision 2 budget, which is currently active. And then you have your actual revenues as of the end of March and expenses as of the end of April. You have your fiscal 22 revision 3, which will be under consideration on June 13th, and fiscal 23 proposed. That's in the pink column. Okay, and I have the wrong page starting out, I can tell right off the top. Hold on. What? Meters. Okay, I think this is right. Okay. So, I'm gonna just mostly discuss things that are experiencing change. So we're gonna start with, in the income side, the top there, with the section with the line item called Other Grants, which is where the Department of Health and Human Resource grant money that we received for the early warning detection system in fiscal 22 was recorded in 22, and therefore we will not have it in 23. We have reduced our water bill payment line item by about 5% to be conservative in planning as we continue to monitor our full fiscal year billing at the new water rate, which was established in December 2021. So we didn't find like severe issues there. So we're just being conservative and see how it shakes out. We probably will take a closer look at it, but all right. So you'll notice that the ARPA line, that's the American Rescue Plan Act line, that the first and second tranches of funding have been moved into fiscal 23 out of fiscal 22 completely. The bid for Elks Run water main replacement is live now and will close tomorrow. We hope to have town council awarding that bid at the June 13th meeting, and that should place the requirement for funding into fiscal 23, and therefore.
Wait a minute, can you slow down a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, keep going, I'm just trying to.
Okay. Therefore, the project soft cost reimbursement cash that was planned to provide cash to fund the project, Elks Run project in fiscal 22 until the second tranche of ARPA money arrived in this summer, won't be needed for this purpose anymore. So that's been reduced. And the ARPA money has been doubled because we'll get that second tranche in the summer. So, and so it's been reduced to a level that we should not need it, or if we need it to cover the administrator position, as was discussed previously, if for some reason our normal operating expenses would be insufficient to do so, this is where we would pull it from. In the event that should happen, it is our intent that it would not. On page 2, the expense budget line items begin, or further down in your spreadsheet. We have applied for the funding from West Virginia State Drinking Water Revolving Fund and for congressionally directed spending to possibly provide funding for the unfunded portion of the original upgrade to our water system, the distribution system. In fiscal 23, some items we originally planned to implement have been postponed or scaled back until we learn the disposition of these requests, which we hope will be by the spring of 23. So areas to focus on this one are new meters. We had originally planned in 22 that we'd be bidding a contract to complete a complete new meter system that would probably involve financing. But since now we've rolled that back into our funding request, we're dropping that number to provide for current meter replacements that are needed and probably most especially the internal workings of two major apartment complexes in our system, which would allow those to flow more accurately without the full replacement, but would probably really help us with regard to accurate readings. Jumping down to maintenance of mains and materials and supplies. We have allowed for the purchase of a valve torque that will be used to keep our valves operational so that we can isolate areas of the system should leak repairs be required. Other normal main materials and supplies are also included here, and the notation regarding replacement of large meters to the right belongs on the new meter line above. You might not, I might have corrected it on what you have. All right, moving on to maintenance of main contracted services. This is where we account for the Elks Run replacement, as well as other contracted work that may need to be used for mains and meter replacement during the year. Moving on to plant salaries. Let me first express that the numbers you see here do not represent a typical year, both in the fiscal 22 revision and the fiscal 23 columns. We are allowing for the 6-month wage compensation for single membrane operation. It also includes overtime for extra hours required for processing at half capacity when that is required, and it includes wages for our temporary class 2 operator. As a matter of normal planning, it also allows for a 5% COLA increase effective July 1, and plans for wage increases to accompany operator certifications that may be on the horizon. Once we are fully operational with the new system, we will make adjustments in this category for the remainder of fiscal 23. And then the payroll tax line and pension line, expense line also reflect these circumstances. And let me just say with regard to wages in general and all this coming up in this meeting, we have this other thing about, this other item about pay scales. That was not used to create this. This was based on what was originally, is currently in place.
Okay.
In the office salaries, the water clerk and a third of the financial office wages as usual, with a 5% increase have been included, and then also added is half the wage for the anticipated public works administrator position. And all of these wages also impact payroll tax and the pension. Employee PEIA is our health insurance and has been increased in anticipation of that need for the administrative position.
I'm sorry, can you say again, the plant salaries and wages are, and then you said the new temp person.
Yep.
Where has that person been added?
It's in plant salaries and wages.
It's in plant salaries, okay.
Yeah, I think we'll be all right. No, it's okay, thank you.
Verlissa, did you, okay, let me come in here for a second.
Utilities, plant chemicals, plant materials and supplies, and plant maintenance supplies have all been reviewed with the project engineer, water project engineer, to allow for the transition ahead of us into the new system. Adjustments after we are up and running will likely be required. All right, under lab services, even though our normal monthly testing requirements will not change with the new water membrane system, this line item plans for copper and lead testing requirements that are due in fiscal 23. You may recall an email and lots of discussion recently about the recommendation to contract with the company for the implementation of this testing. It involves collection from samples of residences in our community. This budget line item allows for what we know at this time will be needed to complete our fiscal 23 testing for copper and lead, utilizing this contracted service. So this is going to go before council. It's a contract to work with this particular company, 120 Water, which is being used by Shepherdstown and Charlestown, to manage and implement the actual testing, distribution of the test kits and receipt of the test kits, documentation. And as Laurel and anybody else who's had their ears into this at all, every time we get on some kind of call or some kind of discussion about this project of the lead and copper reporting becomes more involved with more legs and things that we have to do. And it's kind of like learning about the ARPA money, in that, you know, it like came from above and now it's coming down and people are processing, and the more they process, the more they'll learn about what they have to do, and eventually it gets to us. So our hope is that we get through this first phase of testing, and by then we have our hands around it a little bit more, and we'll have to plan for moving on. But eventually this is going to require full mapping of all of our mains, as much as we know about any residences, color-coded mapping, all that kind of stuff, which these people can assist us with. So anyway, just putting that into your brain, and this contract, which is about $7,000, is going to be coming to council for approval.
I hope to have like traveling robots or something.
Yeah.
So this is beyond the testing we do at the plant. This is like to the consumers of the
Yes,
water.
these people we will identify houses that fit the parameters that DHHR sets up and the federal level set up. They have to do with the age of the house, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a certain sampling that you want of various ages of the houses and all that kind of business. So we set up which houses, and that they fall into those certain sampling categories. And then these people are going to send out the sample kits and collect them back. And then as they do that and we move forward, they'll help us build the database to be able to finally do all of our reporting of what we learn about our entire system. Is that fair assessment?
Well, the thing is, that depends on whether we want to
Work with them.
hire them to do the second part.
And that's true, absolutely, yeah. So I guess that, to my point of what I was saying before, the more, we must comply with this testing. It has to be done by September 30th. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And we are required to get, especially with the new membrane system, we're required to get 2 6-month intervals of good testing with 20 residents, back to back. So this contract covers that. And then once we get another couple months down the road, I guess we'll evaluate where we are, what we know, what we need, and
Well,
see.
this is
Yeah.
potentially an ongoing testing that will need to be done or periodic.
I think, well, this has to, all this reporting has to be in by 2024. And I think after that, if you've got, then your sampling becomes just periodically over like every 3 years or something like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
but certain health tests.
Probably because of Flint, Michigan.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah, they're doing it, the entire country.
Yeah,
is
oh,
how
I get it,
is.
but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
where it started.
Yeah, just getting a sense of,
Exactly.
is this, just a routine thing? But it
Well,
was-
testing for lead and copper is a routine thing, but I think that I think the interval had been 3 years. Now I think they're like, okay, but now we want to know all this, and then
Reset,
that will go to
yeah.
another probably interval, I guess.
Yeah, my impression is, this first part is testing the water. The next part is actually testing the service lines. They're gonna have to sample and test service lines to see if there's any, basically looking, because we don't think there's any lead pipes, still there could be copper pipes with lead solder. And that's what they're looking for. That's what they want to be certain is not there.
Interesting. Okay, got it.
All right,
So which item was that on?
that is under lab services.
So that was why, there was an increase there.
And I had it in revision 3 of 2022, and I probably should have just put it in 2023, but at the time when I built it, I thought it was like gonna happen tomorrow, that we were gonna sign, we were gonna sign the contract, so we were gonna so.
How could I find the actual detail of what exactly they're agreeing to do?
Oh, have this? This is what I have, that's all I've
Because
been given.
I would just really like to know what it is. and-
I'll send you
and how
I'll send you the email.
Okay, thank you.
It's really, there's detail, but it's probably not as detailed as you would think. Okay, are we moving on?
Yeah.
Good, all right. Plant maintenance contracted services has accounted typically for repairs to our outdated water system. In fiscal 23, this line item is capturing the services required for quarterly calibration of the required test equipment in our internal lab that will be built
Mhm.
as contracting. And also the possibility of contracting for annual sludge removal should it be required.
Mhm.
So we'll have to enter into a contract with this company that's gonna quarterly come in and calibrate all these instruments that they're gonna get. And apparently this is what's done in our neighboring utilities as well. So. All right, auto and transportation includes increased fuel costs and anticipation of repairs to the Dodge Ram that may or may not be needed. All right, so that brings us down to distribution system reserve. This is a new line item that gives us a target as to how much our expenses we should be reserving for financing the distribution system work that needs to be done. Financing for the water treatment plant portion of the project carried a lower than anticipated interest rate, and therefore, once we are in normal operating conditions, we should be able to accumulate reserves to fund the distribution system from the revenue stream, either with matching funds for the state and federal requests that we've been working on, or to finance the system ourselves. The target number for that, I've worked with Cox Holiday on, and technically, assuming our operations are normal and efficient, we should be looking at, from the change in the interest rate, we should be able to put about $66,000 a year on that line item. Oh my gosh, I thought I turned the buzzer off. I'm so sorry.
Could you explain how do you populate these numbers now? Here, it's on the distribution system reserve.
Hang on one second. It's just my son, or I would not even answer. So we originally, 10 years ago, thought that we were gonna have a loan, let's say, that we were gonna have to make payments on every month of $1,000, just for example. But we secured a loan that only requires payments of $700 a month. So there's a $300 difference. $300 times 12 is that number, $3,600. But really, in real numbers, it's 66,000. And that's what our target should be. Now, that doesn't mean that we'll get there, because our operating expenses may move against us, and we certainly won't get here in these 2 years.
No.
And inflation may work against us. But if you do the raw math on what was supposed to happen with that original loan and payment, and what the payment ended up being, that's what that number comes out to be on an annual basis. Does that make sense?
Let me try to paraphrase in my words that would help me understand. So you're saying the receipts come in, well, that's not it. It's, we're making our payment to the USDA, right? And we are not having to pay as much as we had budgeted for. So the overage gets put into this line, right?
Hopefully.
Okay.
Assuming there aren't expenses
Assuming our expenses.
that don't gobble.
Yeah. Right.
You know, things won't get straight until, it'll be like another year.
Yeah.
We'll get this plant done, and we'll be more normalized.
But that sort of helps to identify, like, you know, the impact of trying to do it on our own. Doesn't mean that it can't be done, but that it is going to take longer to do. Yeah. Anyway, hopefully good news is on the horizon with regard to that.
Yes, but we cannot count on it. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, I think that pretty much covers everything. Any other questions in general on that? Because that will come before council on both of those. Revision 3, 22, and proposed 23 will come before council on the 13th.
Okay. And this is something we need to,
I would say that you accept them to recommend, since you got them in front of me.
move to recommend to town council accepting the fiscal year 2022 revised revision 3 budget for the water department as submitted.
Second that.
I want to thank you for this beautiful Excel file.
Oh,
Discussion,
you're
yes,
welcome.
okay.
I'm glad that it worked. Okay, good.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, yeah, good work.
All right, so now, we're on,
Discussion and action regarding fiscal year 2023 budget for the water department.
no, this is actually, you just did both of those.
Oh,
We did?
Except
oh, you know what, I only read the one, so. I
Okay,
did the
you
second one.
did, then you do the other, yeah.
I recommend, that we recommend, move that we recommend to town council accepting the fiscal year 2023 revised budget for the water department as submitted.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Okay. Now we're done with water.
All right.
General budget.
Yep.
We're gonna have that.
So we're gonna do, it's in the same spreadsheet, just click over on the next tab, or the first one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, so
There it is.
you're gonna need to, if you wanna, we're gonna go through this one, fiscal 22 revision 3, this will be for recommendation to council. Then I did not send to you in an Excel sheet, but I can, no, I was gonna share screen to do that. Fiscal 23, which I just reviewed completely with Charlie, but I really wanted to conceptually go through that and tell you like where I thought we were. So that's not gonna be for recommendation because that won't get really revised until July.
Yeah, so 23 is just discussion.
Yep. Mhm. Okay. All right, so you see fiscal 22, revision 2 in the gray column, J, and then you have income in K as of May 25 and expenses as of April 30.
Okay, can you hold on a second?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
would like to know, where can I find that?
In the other tab of the same spreadsheet that you were just in.
Just the bottom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't know it either.
I, wait. Okay, here I am, and I need to move over to general, okay. All right, I'm here now, thank you so much.
Okay. So, I guess what we really want to be focusing on is that K column for actuals where we are right now, and then trying to project what we think is gonna happen to the end of the year, right? So, coming on to property tax, you know, that is what it is, and that's really not terribly abnormal where we are right now. We don't hardly ever know it hits that 100%.
By the right chance, you know what percentage of property tax that comes to the town versus other places? I'll look it up.
I'm sure that we have it on our levy sheets,
Hmm.
but I can't tell you what that is right
That's
now.
It'll be part of the discussion later, but yeah.
Oil and gas, pretty self-explanatory. Excise on taxes, for utilities, that's, I projected that should hit just about 10,000 based on what we've done with the 8,800 right there. B&O tax, that includes, all the quarters that we're gonna get for this fiscal year. So we'll get some that will come in ahead of the end of the fiscal year, but what comes in next fiscal year stays there.
Slide, yeah.
So that's not gonna move a lot. Wine and liquor, I bumped that down. I think that's starting to level out, and that is 4 quarters, and I don't wanna,
Yeah, that looks good.
you know, follow up. Hotel motel, again, I dropped that down. That's not gonna bump much more. Same theory as, you know, tax, right? Sales tax revenue, that one is that's our 4 quarters. That's not gonna move at all. Fines, fees, you know, we got 1 more month of court, so I felt like that was about where it's gonna end up.
Yeah.
All right, going on down then to line 48, we're at licenses, a good year for licenses. I did, and then building permits, we had some in and outs, as y'all know, over the last month that has been compensated for in this 4,005. So I just left it alone. It'll fluctuate a little bit, but not materially. All right, parking permits, 600, franchise fees, that's about where that's gonna be, all 4 quarters are in. Coming down to IRP fees, I think that's That's been trickling, so I don't expect a big bump there. Parks and Rec, they'll get a little bit from Music on the Ridge, but it's not gonna be much. Parking meter revenue, this is 11 months.
Tell me what line you're on, please.
I'm on line 56.
56.
So I dropped that.
Even though we had a great weekend.
We had a
Well,
great
see.
weekend, but it's been different,
It's
Yeah.
weather dependent.
and it's been a different year, even without the weather. So,
Yeah, just the pattern.
We're not getting the traffic on Camp Hill like we did last year. Just
The park is fully open with their buses, and I just think attendance is different this year. All right, rents and concessions, that should finish out right around there. It's fine, that's pretty. This is the tree grant money that is still trickling in. And then the next item on line 62, that's our money from the National Park Service, and I've been in contact with them. We changed the bank account, and we did it 2 years ago, and I've not had a problem with it, and I've submitted the forms, but this time, whatever reason, they have a challenge with it, so. And Sam, the entity, the federal entity through which you channel the money, they also changed their system this year.
Yeah.
So there have been some back and forth. I think we've got it figured out now. So yeah, so that should be coming. I mean, it's been approved. It's not like, yeah. All right, table gaming, that one's looking good. I think we'll get another decent month out of that. Interest, refunds and rebates, I don't see that going too much higher than where it is right there. That's a fixed number, your insurance claim. Lottery, that's got about another month and a half in there. That number doesn't come in at a normal pace, so it's a little lagging. Miscellaneous revenue, this is the money from Swan.
Illegal.
Yes, the legal reimbursement, right. BZA, that's gonna hold. Okay, so that brings us down to we're dropping down by 37,500 on our income. Okay, any questions with that? Ready to move on?
Yeah, that's fair.
That we're expecting to pretty much get in the next month.
Well, that's where we're expecting things to fall, yeah, as we close out. Yep. So now we're coming into expenses. BZA, pretty self-explanatory. Wait, did I just say? Oh, okay. So I fully expect that we will consume that 88,000. I moved it to 88, just based on the numbers, how they shook out with the loan, and also they need to get radar and some other stuff for the car. So anyway, I just went hard to be careful there. I dropped the streets and transportation to 60 because that will pick back up in 23. That'll roll over to 23, so it goes into general government, but it's gonna roll out in next year. And there's plenty in there to cover the 5 for the stormwater.
Yes.
Which is where we're gonna take it from here.
Yep.
Right.
it's $5 grand, right?
Yeah, and in theory,
So
onward
we're
from
10
that,
grand.
it should be covered by
Was it
grants.
20 grand the whole thing?
The whole thing, but our commitment was as much as 10.
But there's a lot of stuff in this that was in that number. There was High Street, there was work on stormwater, there was Cambridge Street, and there was the Armory Trail. So a lot of that's just being pushed off. Yeah. Right. Okay, parking is the next thing, right? Yeah, parking. Okay, I just put a little bit in there for if they hire the attendant, which I think that will come to council on the next meeting.
Yes.
Parks, just bumped that a little bit for incidentals, but most of their expenses are gonna come directly out of 906 or 402. Just for the activities, the music on the ridge is what I'm talking about there. So Visitors Bureau, that's a direct, it's a direct drop from No, it's essentially exactly half of hotel motel. Then the next line will be with our reserve that's left over. Landmarks, this is where that money for the Danvers thing, is that,
No response from.
no response, okay. Yeah,
No response.
all right, so
It's
I'm
been going
moving
on for 2
down to
years almost.
line 118, economic development. We'll have a little bit of funding coming out of there for the music on the ridge, but we won't consume the full 12. Office of the mayor, office of council, office of recorder are all standard, so we'll drop down to line 137, which is treasurer, and that's
Oh.
had,
Um,
yeah.
Lines 128 and 129,
Yeah,
column K,
yeah. That's kind of funky.
it might have been transposed.
Actually, it had just says extra. What the heck? Oh, you know what's going on there? Yes, that 7,500 belongs on the salary line. Yep, and it,
There was also some expense for the visitors, the other thing at the Shepherd's Stand, the Bavarian.
I'm sure the 7,500 is the salary line. I will check it, but, yep,
Yeah,
I'm sure of that. But materially, it will all sort out that way.
Yes.
It's not gonna,
That's, I read it. Just
Yeah.
like the transposition.
thank you. Yeah, I'll fix it for when it goes to council. This is council. Alright. So now we're gonna drop down to line 137. This allows for the wage adjustment there that was made back in January, February. And then city clerk, that's plugging along pretty normally. Don't see a need for the litigation reserve, but we always hold it there. 89,
litigious town.
popping down to line 155, now planning. You know, that all looks pretty normal. Go down to City Hall. That's on line 167. So I dropped the accrued leave to normal because there was not much of an impact from that incentive for the COVID thing. Audit costs, we only had the one, the next two will come into 23. Bank fees, that's normal thing, right? Let's see here. Contracted services, I just fine-tuned that a little bit. Right, going on to insurances, again, I also fine-tuned that. I really anticipated we were gonna get a bigger number on our policy renewal, and that renewal, the first quarter is due in May. I always get blindsided by it, so I went a little high there. So thankfully, we will have another workers' comp number to come out of there, but our premium is paid to the next quarter. So, waste equipment, okay, so repairs and maintenance to building, I still dropped that a fair amount, because that was 15K to build out and 5,000 to socket, we didn't do any of that, so I just dropped it, there was no need to hold it up there. Pension expense.
But I do have some things for it, right?
Yeah, and I put it in next time.
Yeah, okay, I got it.
Professional services, that's your accounting, I think they're actually a month behind in their billing, so I think that's gonna catch up. Salaries and wages, this is your OCO and your office coordinator. Moving on down to the bottom there, just fine tuned some items there, so we're down about 30,000 out of there, most of that came out of accrued leave, you know, and then those adjustments on the buildings and repairs, that's 20 right there. The audit also pulled out, so those three, that's about 24 over there. Okay. Next line is contingency, I just, honed that in based on that we've reduced our budget overall, it can't be more than 10% of the budget. Okay, we're coming down to the police department, line 197. Just fine tune the auto expenses there. Most of this is fine tuning, police department, the supplies, that I bumped up to include the computer purchases that's going on, and the radar. I put the radar, the radio there, and maybe the radar up top. Okay, I'm just looking for things that are big changes. Okay, so the overall wages I'm predicting to fall and be a little less than what we were anticipating based on where we are now, so that also drops your pension. And I also fine-tuned the property insurance. And then line 241, that's what we pay to the state for, that's a portion of the fines and the fees that go to the state. So that's a numerical equation based on what the fines and income is, so
Yes.
I dropped that, so this drops.
Yeah.
So overall, that department dropped by almost 24,000, 24,500. All right, coming down into the street department then, that begins on line 246. I dropped the capital outlay because we didn't utilize that, right? Contracted services, just drop that down a little bit more. Fine tune your insurance, drop materials and supplies to a more appropriate level. And that leaves us, that's your 20,000 pretty much right there. All right, dropping down into street lights, things look normal there. Street signs. I fine-tuned our snow, what it was. And public transit.
Yay.
Yeah, we did
And
some.
just conservatively honed on the attorney line. And so again, our overall change is 37.5 to finish out there for 22. Any questions or recommendations, thoughts?
No,
No, that's good.
I move to recommend accepting the fiscal year 22 revised budget as presented.
Second that.
I will make the one change to fix that funny number.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
what I said,
yeah.
presented, because that was part of how you presented it.
And,
Oh, okay.
discussion.
Oh, no, it wouldn't be obvious.
Okay, that discussion is right over. Okay, all those in favor? All right.
All right, so I'm gonna, so I really had thought I would screen share the 23 budget. Do you want me to, do you want to log in, or do you want me to just kind of talk you through it?
You can talk me through it. That's right, I can just look at the.
I like looking at, do we have this as well?
No, because I just finished it with Charlie this morning. Can you go to the email that I sent you for the Zoom meeting today?
Yes.
And join the meeting, and then I'll share the screen?
Well, are we gonna get a copy of this, or what?
No,
Or
because
how
it's
do you-
not finalized, and so we're conceptually, I mean,
Yeah, I'm trying to look off of the fiscal year 2022, because the lines are the same. And then if you're highlighting material differences, it'll be easy for me to see how they stack up against the revised 22.
let me think about it a second. It's gonna take me a minute to, if I send it to you, they'll give it to you. They want her. I just didn't think about it this morning since we just finished it this morning. All right, let's try it. Yeah, maybe this. Drive. Okay, let's see if I can. All right, it's coming to you.
Got it. So this is the fiscal year 2023 sneak peek.
Right. So we're required in July to revise our budget so that it properly reflects the carry forward amounts which are actually occurring. So that's why we don't really want to do it now, because it's just a guess, and then we're gonna have to do it again in July.
So that's the
So-
tie, exactly.
right. There's a lot of things that are going on, you know, we've got a lot of big funding items that are in front of us and decisions, and we've planned for them in the fiscal 23 budget, so this is just to illustrate that we feel like we are still moving in the direction that we can accomplish those things, so I want you to feel comfortable with that. It's not necessarily even anything that you would go to council with, except that you've reviewed it and that you feel confident that we can move forward based on what you've seen so far.
Yes.
Okay, so, we ran our, in the purple column there, these are our projected carry forward balances as conservative as we can be. And, you know, it's big, we're paying out the, police car, et cetera, so there's kind of a big drop there in the unsigned balance. Also in the fund balance is that, signed fund balance, we, in the original fiscal 23 budget, I was so assured that we were gonna be paying out the Armory Canal $50,000, that I took it out of the assigned fund balance, but that's not what's happening, so I'm putting it back in.
Okay.
But I did take out the stormwater grant.
Yes.
What about the streets? High
80,000,
Street?
that's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we got here, so what's in that is, this review is, that's where we hold our equipment fund, it's where the court operating fund is.
Marks.
Oh,
So the assigned fund balance includes our equipment replacement, the court fund, Parks and Rec, because that has its own little, it's assigned to its own little self. That's $15,000 for the lease building space, the lease space build out, which you would reassign to the renovation engineering, okay? And then 5,000 to town hall repairs, which was supposed to be for soffit, which didn't happen. So you could reassign that however you want to do that. I have $8,000 in there to mailboxes, which could be reassigned as appropriate. And then took out the stormwater, kept in the 80,000 on the High Street, and added back 50,000 on the Armory Canal. Okay?
Yep.
All right. Taxes are what taxes are. I'm gonna look at, okay, so B&O tax, we had, started with 145, we'll finish up around 190, so I felt like it was okay to push that up a little bit, but not too high, considering that we also feel a little conservative about this year, I think.
Yeah, it could be, if it's a little soft, we don't want
Right.
to be writing
Overstate.
checks on
Yeah.
stuff that might come.
And why did, so we ended up with your 190, which is extra. And so you're just lowballing that a little bit,
Yep.
just so that
Yeah.
we don't.
So if you look at the full trend, like if you look in column G, that's where it had started, and that was based on sort of the running assumptions.
Yeah.
And that
Okay.
the engine ran great this year, but you don't want to go in saying, expecting that it's
The
gonna
same thing.
continue, unless you have very good reasons to believe it. And
Right,
there are
and if
other-
it's more fixed, like that's really a variable. And all the training that I've been through with state auditors office and stuff like that, they're like, go low on your expenses, go low on your income, go high on your expenses. We'd rather see you adjust it back so that, and
So it's
give
very
us
good.
give us a lot of reasons if you want to, we don't care, so.
Okay.
All right, so, that being said, liquor and wine tax is sitting where it's sitting.
Yeah,
And hotel motel is sitting where it's sitting for that very same reason. And I left the sales tax revenue alone, again, for that reason. Fine fees and court costs, I went down. I don't wanna go any lower than that, I feel like we should certainly be able to attain that number. Or it seems a predictable number to attain, I should say. Licenses, that seems to be holding pretty steady at 4,000. Building fees,
don't count on
knows,
another,
but
yeah.
don't count on it, it's not worth changing it.
Yeah.
Coming on down to parking meter revenue, I dropped that number, I just felt like we had to, I don't think we're gonna get much more than that in this year, so,
Yeah, I think it's.
Yep,
that's
and we
good.
may need to adjust it more as the year goes on, pending. Rents and concessions, I just fine tuned that a little bit, because we had a little hiccup with if you recall, the post office leased out some of the downstairs, and my number got a little squirrely because of that, but at the same time, we do get a little bump each year incrementally with the, cell tower, so I think 80 is right. Yeah. All right, so that allows for 3,000 on the tree grant, everything else is pretty steady coming on all the way down, so that dropped our whole budget from the beginning, what we started with, to what we're revising it to by 39,300 on the income. All right, coming on down. General government, that I ended up dropping in, that has to do with some of the things that we've added back in down below, but, it's not a
So it's a
dreadful number.
rebucketing, not so, less, a rebucketing and not a drop in expenses.
Yes, exactly, right. So we're not looking at another car, but we are looking at some other equipment expenses there. For the vehicle and public safety, I'm on line 182 now, I'm 82, excuse me. Streets and transportation, here's where I added back in, where I dropped it to 60, I'm putting it over here now. And that's also probably a little bit higher than it needs to be. But don't know what we might need for matching on your. I think we really should at some point take a look at this number, but I also keep hearing about a lot of need for it, so it's also kind of a placeholder for us to.
Well, yeah, I mean, for sure, like, it sort of crosses over a bit with beautification too, but just a lot of,
Sidewalks, all
Deferred
that kind of
maintenance.
stuff, things that we've been, so I'm sort of thinking about matching grant money as I look at this number.
oh yeah, me too, and that,
Right.
and this could be something that gets tied into stormwater, but we can't
Well,
count.
the state's gonna do something with our ramps, but we're still trying to figure out why. They're not mediating.
And I may, and, yeah, so sometimes on some of these line items, I have to offer explanation, and that's really what I'm looking at, is that we have a lot of projects going on that are gonna require matching grants, monies. And so we're trying to build up a reserve for that. All right, coming on down in the payroll now, I've added back in some payroll for parking for our attendant to be hired.
Yep.
So that takes care of that, pretty much. Coming on down now, everything is steady on, staying the same until we get to, okay, treasurer office, this is gonna compensate for, as I have read and understood, these pay scales. That takes your COLA and pay scale adjustment from what I can figure out. I don't know that I completely understand it, but I figured it's better to budget for it than not to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, same thing in the clerk area, it's kind of normal change there. All right, I'm down to line 156, contracted services for planning commission, and here's a place where, you know, we're doing some
Yes.
replacement of items, but this is our 20,000 for, what we had thought might be up to 20,000 help with the, help me out, what is it?
Comprehensive.
Thank you.
Comprehensive plan, an outside firm,
Okay?
Yep.
All right, how many?
which, by the way, can assist BZA.
Yes, there may be some ordinance work as well.
Yes.
Can I stop for a second? I just want to ask what we're comparing. So the first column, FY 2023. So this is a budget that was previously approved.
Yep.
Right.
We approved it in March, town council approved it in March. And so now we're gonna revise it. So your originals in column AP, the gray, are comparing the original, the green column, to the change that's occurring with the revision in the purple column.
Okay.
So the whole thing is that between when we passed it and now, that there have been material changes in what the town has determined it needs and changes in its revenues enough to say we really should be looking at a different
Right.
set of numbers.
And so column H is is adding up what happened in 2022, or the fiscal 22, right? And this column is, this sum is income.
Oh, because I
think I froze the column, I froze the top. I'm scrolling.
Oh, okay. Yeah, oh, I see. I think the colors maybe didn't come through. So, yeah, I'm working off of this column, and the difference is this column.
This column is purple minus green.
Yep.
Right. And the column in between is adding up how much we have accrued in the current fiscal year, right? And comparing it to what, and then we.
Right, because it helps us make as a benchmark to figure out where we should go, what to expect,
And they're the numbers from the last set that we saw.
that we just saw in the
Yes.
revision
Right.
for fiscal 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, and then, so now we're gonna move down to City Hall. Again, I dropped that accrued leave number, from what we had thought with the, COVID thing. The audit costs, oh, boy, okay, so that's 2 years, that's gonna be fiscal 20 as a regular and fiscal 21 as a single audit.
Wow.
So I'm putting in what I expect the cost from the auditors, plus we then pay 8% servicing fees to the state.
Oh, wow.
Thing there.
The other material things are in your line 188 salaries and wages. This includes the COLA, which was already in the 23, plus the departmental increase, plus the half of the public works administrator. And that then also affects your payroll taxes and your pension expense.
Is the longevity program in here?
It's, I'm not specifically,
It's not a
because
lot,
it's
but
not, it's not, we'll adjust that as we go through the year, because those wages will not hit dead on, they'll be variable. Yeah. And it's not enough to say, oh, this is that
No,
program.
it's
Yeah.
not.
So you're being fine.
Where are we now? What line?
188. So you can see that that's bumped considerably, because that's due to mostly the administrative public works position we've been discussing.
Mhm.
Okay, so going down to City Hall, that bump was significant there. I dropped the contingencies again, that just needs to be up to 10% of our total. And then I just did some reorganization of of where things were sitting on these lines, but you'll see that, I'm down in the police department now, sorry, I jumped. I'm on line, if you look at line 217, 217, and you compare the green column to the purple column, the amount of money is the same, that's the total that we're working off of. I just reorganized it above better.
Yes.
So putting the 20,000, this is what we talked about, that all their body radios needed to be replaced, so this is that.
Yes.
20,000 getting identified right there. Okay, and then, going down further into the police department, you're gonna see, their wages stay the same because their change in rates were based on what was proposed, when the chief brought all that forward in his proposal. So there was no change to
That was
their
already
rates
baked in.
based on this scale.
Right, okay, right.
And then your, the amount of rate to the state adjusts.
Right, all the other
Line
costs.
243, same as before. So basically, they said overall is a 2,200 drop in that number. All right, street department pretty much stayed steady on. I believe, yes, everything's steady there pretty much, just a small adjustment in that wage. Street lights stay, everything else is the same, so basically a net difference. So the point I'm trying to convey to you is that we have done we've assessed our carry forward numbers. We feel like they're pretty good based on what we know still needs to be spent and what we think will come in. And that you have allowed for your comprehensive plan contractor, you've allowed for the administrator, you've allowed for the building work, and the other things that were to be considered in this budget of
Yeah.
priorities.
The smaller projects that are.
Plus your wage increases. So that's what the point of just walking through this and not making a motion, because we'll fine tune it in July. But you should be able to walk forward into these things, noting that we should be able to carry them.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
very good,
Yeah.
very good review.
Confident, and all these changes were like, oh my gosh.
No, it's comforting
Right.
to see even with some of those, being conservative on revenue, we're still doing well.
And even though they might not be, the only one that I wouldn't want to move forward with without adjusting the budget would be the comprehensive plan thing, because that absolutely was not included anywhere as a line item. So, but the administrator or any of those other things, there's enough room in what's already there to move forward, and then when we make the adjustment in July, we would finalize that number and increase it to compensate. So by spending it now, we wouldn't be out of line, because we'd still be spending in the amount that we have.
Right, only that the comprehensive plan one isn't already on the
Oh,
list.
right, that's the one that really wasn't pigeonholed. Okay, I am done.
All right, thank you. All right, so
Don't ask me any more questions.
No. Can see that the meter is,
we're not voting on this. right?
No,
So
no.
this discussion, all right. All right, moving along, because we're trying to get done here.
Yeah.
Discussion action regarding the fiscal year 2023 police department pay scales. Okay.
So those were all presented to y'all, and I guess the idea is that you would adopt them and recommend them, right?
Yeah, let me talk to this a little bit. I was really involved in this pay scale thing for a while with the police department, only because the mayor wanted me to kind of get engaged in a little bit. So I did, and I looked at what other departments were doing, and as you all know, we keep falling behind. That's our competition. I think we kept falling behind from a salary standpoint, so then we have to bring it back up. And I can see that's not a really fiscally correct thing to do, at least for the employees, because they, they're kind of on a seesaw a little bit. So this system that is pretty much like what Charlestown is doing and Shepherdstown is doing, and it's this increase each year, and they know where they stand, as long as they qualify in their appraisals, employee appraisals. I did look up in the, from the Society of Human Resource Management, it's the SHRM, it's a respected organization for HR. Many HR people look at them and are members of that organization. And so wage increases currently in 2023, we've been running about 3 to 3.2%. I just wanted to see how we were comparing. And already they're surveying, and they survey this, they're surveying the HR people, personnel at companies. And as of November, it was 3.9%.
Tell me what that figure is again.
That's the increase in salaries
Year over year.
for their employees, not their employee. Well, when they put them all, some are paying, giving 10% raises, some are giving 0%, but in average right now, it's, as of November, it's 3.9%. So what we're talking about on the police one is a 3%. And I think it's in line.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in line. And so we're not really, I mean, in the future, a future town council could change these percentages, but I think the 3 is reasonable as I see it.
And is this another thing that these pay scales should be something that we would review?
Yes.
Look at each year and say, steady
Yeah,
on, or
the town council has.
And my understanding is that each year they'll be adjusted, but they will also be adjusted and incorporate the prevailing COLA.
yes.
So that that's all in, it's not in this,
No.
but going forward, when they make the adjustments, that would be included.
Oh, so this does not include COLA? so
No.
this-
Correct, this does
Right.
not.
Just because of the timing of when those two things occurred, like the COLA was already put in, right?
And this is municipal government.
Oh, no, it makes sense. 'cause
Yeah.
When you're looking at this, you're looking at the real dollars in the future.
Right. Now, I've worked for companies where it's performance reviewed, and you're paid for your performance, per se. We're not gonna be doing that. We're gonna be doing this based on performance. Yes, you've got to qualify, but you basically get to pick up in your pay each year.
Right.
And at this point, it's set at 3%.
But it actually says on here, it's not guaranteed. You have to have an annual performance, successful annual performance, right?
No,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
they have to they have to qualify.
Yeah.
If they're deficient, they're not in the
They're not guaranteed this.
they're not guaranteed, no.
So basically, if in a year, an employee was not found proficient, they would basically stay on the
Right,
year.
they're gonna get their same salary, yeah. I think that's fair. I mean,
Oh, yeah, and just understanding, because it's not if it's
this is not a
performance
guarantee,
system,
this is gonna
right.
happen for you every year, but in general, you do your job.
Yeah.
You should. And I like it because then we always stay, in my opinion, competitive with our competition.
And with, well, yeah.
Well, it also-
Or other towns, or however you wanna do it.
So, the police department's got it. How well does this correspond to what our people are making right now? And I don't mean in any exact way, I mean in general, do they already fit this schedule?
Not at the police department. These are increases that are going to bring them to what the market bears.
Correct, and she's right on that. We're gonna get back to market. Remember I said how we've been behind.
So this is gonna be, for them, it will be some of them, it will be a pretty significant bump because it's what the market is bearing.
Because the issue is if there are other police departments that are recruiting.
Right.
For officers.
Have you noticed a sign by the cemetery down in 340? There's a sign from the the town of Charlestown, they're looking for police officers. This is what we're up against. There's people, Hagerstown had close to $20,000 signing bonus.
So we already, yeah, I mean, we always have to deal with that, that's.
No,
that's-
this has gotten beyond the
You
norm
know.
right now. So that's why we have to get our police department, current police department back up in line with market.
So if we adopt this or recommend it, this then this would require a review of the budget to see whether it is gonna
No.
handle.
Okay, so this was, not this exactly, but, not that chart exactly, but the wage rates to which the various individuals that would be affected by adopting that chart were given to me when I developed the first FY23 budget that you all approved in March.
So it's baked into what we just.
So yes, that's already been put into the budget. They're increasing them to the wages that are in the market right now that's on that chart. So what now you're doing is you're adopting this ongoing thing to keep them at a market rate.
So the year one column was something that we had already determined. This is okay, now instead of this being one point in time, we're gonna look and see how this evolves.
So this is so we don't fall behind again.
Okay, I get it.
And we don't want to lose, bottom line, we do not want to lose any good employees. And so we've got to.
That seems well-grounded and,
Yeah.
Looking at the I say industry, but the experts in, I guess, sorry, I forget the name of the organization.
Sure.
Yeah, sure, that it's well.
Yeah, and they were running in the low 3s, and now their members are starting to be pushing 4. We don't know where that's going to go. So depending on inflation. But I think things will hopefully stabilize. That's my hope.
No.
But inflation rate was
So-
8.5%. I mean,
So we need to formally.
Yeah, you would want to recommend to council that they adopt this pay scale for the police department.
Yeah, I move to recommend that. I recommend to town council adopting the fiscal year 2023 police department pay scales as presented.
I'll second that. Discussion? All those in favor? Okay. And this will put us on with our other towns. This is
Yeah.
basically what they do. I shouldn't have to resell it here.
You're not reselling it, it's good, we're good.
Just wanna.
Yep.
Okay, so let's do the next one. So now the next one is the discussion and action regarding fiscal year 2023 water department pay scales.
So I'm gonna make a comment to that if you don't mind. So the water department, as you already know, Laurel, has kind of a pay scale that was adopted, a pay scale chart that was adopted last winter. And so we have an employee here in this building who has worked on these charts and from past experience of working with them in HR department, developed these charts and used that pay scale chart that the water department already has in place to the best of her ability to build the chart that you see there. When I tried to go and take those numbers that's on those charts and apply them to various employees that we have at the pay scales that they are at right now, and then put it into the 23 budget that y'all just looked at to recommend to council, I started running into some stumbling blocks. I couldn't quite figure out how we were gonna place people. Are we putting someone at, this operator, but they're actually now at year 5? Or
Right.
am I
Could you have
taking them from one
Right.
place and jumping them, right? I was.
Right, would you have an OIT who potentially making more than a class 1?
Right,
that kind
it
of
was
thing.
getting very confusing to me.
Yes.
And so I wanted to meet this morning with the mayor and our clerk who worked on this to go over this with the mayor to make sure that I understood, but that did not happen. There were a lot of things going on here. So the concept, I think, of adopting it so that it is in place as time goes on is a really good concept, but I would suggest that we take some time to actually, to let me actually work on this with the mayor and make sure that I understand what he wants to do at each of these levels and that they're built right before we actually adopt those numbers. So they could be, you could defer it, or you could, maybe I could work on it and present it to Water Commission later this month, and then it could be adopted in July retroactively. I mean, there's gonna have to be reviews done anyway, so.
I think that it really has, we've done a lot with salaries lately.
Yeah.
And it should be looked at very carefully.
Right.
It's how the current people fit into it.
Right.
And I had a question about the water clerk, is that has there been any review of what water clerks make in the area?
I think that all came into play in the pay
Previous,
scale that was adopted by the water department in January of 2021.
I'll tell you, I don't think that they reviewed the water clerk. I think they did do a review of all these others, and we had Shepherdstown and we had Charlestown, and we did have, but not the water clerk.
And you may be right, I sort of seem to remember seeing that the other day, but I could be mistaken. But all the more reason, I think it just needs a little further review.
And I agree.
So we could just defer on this one,
Yeah, and that's important for this week.
but we need to.
I mean, conceptually, I think it's very important along with the others, but I just am concerned we don't have the right data and know how to apply it, yeah.
Does the water commission, can you guys do that research that's required?
Well, let me first meet with the mayor and make sure that I understand what I'm looking at.
Right.
And then if it just involves redoing this, what you have in front of you to fit the scale that you already have, and that I need to better understand where people are falling and how we're going to apply it, then I can take that to the water commission and say, this is how we're going to use this, how it's proposed. And then right, I mean, if it's going to involve more of an overhaul than that, then I think we got to go back to square one with the people who are developing it.
I personally think it's better to have the salary survey and go according to that, comparing to other departments, than to go back to what was adopted a year ago. In other words, I don't trust that as much. I don't trust what was adopted a year ago as much as I do a current salary survey.
So basically the same sort of review that was done with the police.
Yeah, to a certain extent, yeah. Well, anyway, first thing is I need to make sure I understand it. I really don't think I understand it, so let me just do that first, see where we end up, and then I'll, if I'm really at a loss, I'll shoot it off to you, maybe Laurel, and see what you think. We'll take it from there.
Should we do
We can do the general.
General as well, it's the same thing?
Yep.
So we should defer both?
No. The general is reflective of what is actually happening.
Okay.
Yep,
all right.
that's fine.
All right, so let's just defer on the water department, and let's move into just the next item, discussion action regarding the fiscal year 2023 general services, I just called it that, pay scales. Okay. It's like the rest of the employees. Okay. Okay. I like this concept anyway, for the same reason I like the police department.
Yeah.
One, I think the 3% is reasonable, and I think we need to stay competitive.
I have a question, was there salary surveys done for these, like town clerk, office coordinator, was it based on any salary surveys?
I don't know. I wasn't involved in developing it.
Yeah, I guess not.
I'm just really not sure. We can certainly ask that question, but I think it may, I don't know.
Yeah,
These, one, I think we have to be careful, because how do you compare an office coordinator, how do you compare even a town clerk, like our town clerk who's doing the police, I think she's doing the fire department too.
Right, it's
Putting
hard
out a
to
lot of
say.
fires.
Yeah. And the police, I think that's a little harder. I know in the water, it would be, that is very rigid. It's like close to the scales of these.
Oh, but, you know, even so, you know, you have people like Ryan who has his heavy-duty machinery experience that makes him more than the typical OIT, and yeah, I understand what you're saying, that it may be difficult.
Our maintenance person is quite a bit different
Yeah,
than
they're-
most maintenance,
There aren't direct comparables really for,
not these positions.
and part of that is, you know, that you have people wearing a lot of hats, like that you wouldn't in, say, Martinsburg or Charlestown, and that what is being done in any given month, let alone year, can be radically different. So,
I mean, they can be found, you can just do a search on them, you know, with various positions, but again, is the job description the same? That's a
Right.
question, yeah.
it's different than police officers where the duties are, you know.
Yeah, if we were
Cross
Charlestown
compare
size
pretty-
or Ranson or something, they have these categories, I know
Yes.
that. I guess we could do that.
I guess I wonder if we can do this salary survey. I feel uncomfortable with having just based on our current salaries and not on us. I mean, because we're justifying this on the basis of being competitive. But we have done no salary survey just to see whether this is really is competitive, or, you know, we haven't done that. Whereas, I guess I have to say, I don't feel comfortable with all of these.
I think we're looking at 3 different sets of employees. I think police and water, these are positions that have to qualify. You've got certifications, you have to have tests you have to pass,
Yes,
there's
right.
a lot of stuff. Whereas these positions are more generalist positions, and they can come in from a lot of different directions. They may not even come from another municipality.
There's not a specific set of standards that you
Exactly,
apply to,
right.
which
That's
makes
right.
it hard to have accurate
Yeah,
comparables.
it does, but, you know, let's just say that someone here left, okay? And then we were hiring out for this position, and someone's coming in, are we gonna have to pay them this year 1 salary? You know what
Well,
I'm saying?
I think it depends on the job description of the job that's adopted. That's one thing. A lot of people who are in the positions that they are in have evolved from one set of job descriptions to other job descriptions, which also supports a different position title. The other thing too, with one of those positions that's been recently filled, that person is on a different, you know, the council agreed to, after your first year, you're gonna get this, you're gonna get that, and that's not really reflected in there. I mean, I think you could look at adopting it with a little bit of more data. I don't think it's hard to run a search on what clerks are making here, Loudoun County, Frederick, and just run a number on it. And I think we're gonna be close enough that it would provide comfort to say that we're doing something reasonable. I think that could be done for probably all those positions, with the exception of maybe the OCO, but not the OCO, but the office coordinator. But we might be able to look at something else that's
More general
a similar
administrative.
position,
Yeah.
a more similar administrative position. I mean, it's not, you just do a Google search on it, it's not really that hard to do.
Yeah.
You get a little data.
And it's not gonna match up exactly.
SHRM is another organization, I don't know if the members, but they would have that.
Who's that?
SHRM.
The same
Society,
organization.
had to look it up, for human resource management.
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with putting in a little data to it. I mean,
No, I agree.
you could approve it, assuming that data falls in line, and ask that that be received next week sometime.
See, the big thing to me is the concept, if we want the
Right.
concept, and that's
Right.
kind of what I'm more.
So maybe that's what you can do, you can improve the concept of it, and assuming that, and assuming the data supports the positions,
Yeah, hang on.
and to your point, you know, I mean, it just depends on who you hire. If you, like what happened with me, you know, if you hired somebody who came here with years of experience working for a municipality, you would pay them differently than somebody who came in here just as a bookkeeper, like I did in the beginning, and I was just paying bills. And that all changed, so it would depend on what you did. At the same time, you ended up paying for it on the other end because Cox Holiday had to do a lot of the work that I do now. So it comes out in a wash usually somewhere.
I'd like to make a motion
Go ahead.
to recommend adopting the general services pay scale, actual pay amounts, TBD, pending research into comparables.
And you may also want to talk with the mayor about it one-on-one, just to make sure, because he's also been in the forefront of working on these and perpetuating this concept.
Yeah,
he might have
he's
some
actually
insight into
hasn't-
this.
This
I
might
have
have
not
been why-
spoken to him about it.
Yeah.
right, he couldn't make it, and I'm guessing this was probably one of the things that he.
It absolutely was.
He would have discussed.
And Verlissa wanted to discuss it with us too, but we couldn't ask her to wait.
And the only one I was familiar with was the police.
Yeah.
No, I think it's good.
But I'd like to see
Get
all
more
employees
information.
in some sort of system like this.
Was there a second?
Yeah, I second it.
Well, I guess I would
No,
just.
discussion?
Oh, I'm
Discussion.
sorry,
Oh, discussion?
I'm sorry, I just jumped
Sorry.
right into discussion without asking.
Mhm.
I just wonder why should we, I guess I'd rather table it for more, rather than recommend it pending. Why, let me ask you, why did you go to recommend, to approve it? And
To approve the concept?
instead of just tabling it for
Oh,
more
point
information?
of order, tabling means to get rid of it completely, so, like,
Okay,
dead.
that's not
So-
what I meant, I meant,
Yes, I understood.
there's some other word I'm looking for, I don't know what it is,
Defer.
which is defer, okay.
Because I believe very much in the concept of having, once you've determined what the starting place is for the amounts, to having this predictable scale. So I feel like that's something that we could say, we are going to do this, but that it's pending the research into the comparables to set the actual pay amounts. So I don't feel like it's, for me, I don't feel like it's,
I mean, he took a baby step. I mean, just took one step.
You're saying you're approving the concept of the table, and we are researching to see what the amount should be.
yes. So I recommend adopting the general services pay scale. I can add a word to that concept.
The only thing that bothers me is that if someone comes along and says, okay, here's the figures, and okay, then it just goes without any further consideration by this body.
It needs to come to this body, or it needs to be passed by town council. That's the, because it's the actual pay dollars that have to be approved.
Yes.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
So for instance, if next week if our clerk does some research and shares with y'all some research about what these pay points are in various areas, and that jives with what you see here, then if you take it to council, then when it comes before council, you will have seen that data that supports the numbers, right? Or do you want to wait another cycle?
Yeah, I do feel like this body should review.
I mean, it's not really gonna, the one that's really critical about the timing of it was the police department. The rest of them all, I mean, they all require reviews.
Yeah.
But all of them, I mean, nobody's gonna be adversely affected, no employee, if you wait another cycle.
And
fine.
I agree that it is
Yeah.
good to confirm you know, just to have a similar grounding, even if
Yeah.
it's gonna be looser, just to say we're way
Right.
off or not, or whatever it is.
Can I ask you to then, I don't know the procedure, to then make an amendment to your
First we have to
motion, which
pass
is
this.
to.
Well, no, she can amend,
Okay.
Is basically to.
she can propose amendment.
Basically, defer the schedule until we are able to get the data to fill it in and take it up at the next.
Or be more specific, because as it reads now, it says actual pay amounts to be determined pending research into comparables. Did you want to go further than that in describing?
Well, what I want to avoid is that somebody decides, okay, we've done the research, we've got the numbers, we don't need to come back and think about it. And then somehow it goes through without ever the actual deliberation and talking about those numbers, you know, that's what I want to avoid.
But you haven't approved it. You're approving the concept only, so it won't go to council at this
No,
point.
he approved it pending.
No, he approved the
pending
concept.
amendments.
I didn't use the word concept, so I said recommend adopting a general services pay scale, actual pay amounts to be determined. So my intent was for it to be something that we saying, yeah, we're adopting a pay scale as a concept, but the amounts will be pending doing the research and with the comparables. So it's implied, but if you want to put a fine point on it, okay.
What I'm wondering is, the question is, so who decides then what amounts go in that table?
We do,
Town council ultimately,
ultimately, the town council.
and as we're discussing right now, that we do want to bounce it back to budget and
Yeah,
finance.
we do want to bring it back to a smaller group, I agree. That's the important thing, to have the smaller group look at the details.
So do you want to have an amendment, say for the second sentence, actual pay amounts TBD, or another sentence, actual pay amounts TBD pending research into comparables, amounts will be reviewed by budget and finance before going to town council.
That sounds good. I will second it.
Oh, did I just make that motion? No.
Somebody made an amendment in there, I don't know which one of you did it.
Hang on, let me write it down. That's what needs to be reviewed and approved and recommended by budget and finance coming before. So should I make this revision to my own motion? I move to revise the prior motion to add a sentence at the end that reads, amounts will need to be reviewed and recommended by budget and finance before coming before town council.
Sounds good.
Somebody second it.
I'll second it.
Okay, so now we vote on the amendment. All four? Or that's your.
Yeah, all those in favor?
Go ahead. And now we vote on the amended motion.
All those in favor? Okay.
Thank you, Robert.
Phew.
Okay.
All righty. Moving along. Okay, so
16.
16. Discussion action regarding approving the 5% COLA for all employees, all employees for July 1st.
Right, so that's been incorporated in your fiscal 23 budget, and that's just a matter of course that goes before council.
I move to recommend approving the 5% COLA for all employees, for all employees for July.
Effective.
Yeah, sorry, I'm reading off of the, I withdraw my motion. Wow, okay. I feel like I've been sucking on helium. We compose
It has
first.
nothing to do with the fact it's 6:15.
No.
No, nothing at all, and I've eaten $200 today. Recommend approving the 5% COLA for all employees effective July 1st.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye, passes. Okay.
Okay, well, I'm gonna write that down first.
All right.
All right, better go
And
get
so
my
we did
Boston triscuit.
17, 18, discussion action of administrator for the water department.
Okay, so I have sent a draft out. There was no time for anyone to read it, of the job description, and I've been working on the survey we have to do for the lead and copper, and I just, as important as this is to me, I had to get the lead and copper thing done first, so.
It looks good, I just didn't have a chance to.
Oh, I know,
It looks-
I just sent it out very lately, so I'd like your advice on, basically, the timetable for, I had wanted to get this ready for our next meeting. And do you think we can still do that?
Which meeting did you want it ready for?
The next town council,
council
June,
meeting.
June the 13th.
We'll either call a special meeting over this item. That's my thought.
Does the water commission need to review it?
I am working, I've talked to David, whose last name,
Gentlemen,
what,
gentlemen.
Janelet. He is working on it with me, although sometimes he doesn't answer right away. So, but he wanted to work on that job description as well, so we are working on it together, but,
I don't think this, even if you don't have this completely done, I don't think this precludes, doesn't preclude the town council from approving at least the position.
Well, I think when the last meeting, the mayor said, the funding, you need the job description.
You did say that.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is, that's what your intent is here, is to provide that for
Yes.
council to approve and then go, so I mean, I think you do have to have that.
so there's a little bit of time left, to get this more finalized and get it out for comment and for. Now, actually, the mayor already commented, and I added his comments, but not recently, he made those comments months ago on this job description, and I incorporated them. So it's time to have a second look through for him.
So June 13th is our next town council meeting, so we have to have it, we probably have to do a meeting like 6th to the 7th.
Well, does the budget and finance committee have to approve the position descriptions?
Well, I'm looking at it right now, and right at the top, it's described as the waterworks administrator, and that doesn't comport with the discussions we had previously of it being a public works
Oh, right,
administration.
okay.
And also, again, this is the first time I've actually been able to look at it, that, it's kind of an asterisk as to what the other duties would be that aren't related to waterworks, which I don't feel is in the spirit of,
Well, let me ask a question then. Yeah, it's not named right there. Can this be just circulated with the water commission, with the mayor, with this body, and the compilation of what people suggest? And can it be done that way? And then presented to the town council?
I would not be comfortable presenting it directly to town council, just because it is a unique and new position that we need to make sure comports with how it's been set up, especially financially. And that even if the duties right now are primarily waterworks, that it at least needs to have some detail about what the other duties might be that would be assigned to it. So, it's a big new realm, not a tweak.
Yeah, I agree. There'll be a lot of comment on it. There will be a lot of additions, especially the town part of it will be new to add to it. That's right.
And just, I don't feel like a town council meeting is the appropriate venue for working out that level of detail.
Okay, what would you suggest then? What do you suggest we do? Because I would like to, it's possible it's gonna miss this meeting and go to some other council meeting that's later. Maybe you won't have to wait till July, because we do have meetings in between occasionally.
Well, we can endeavor to get input from the different stakeholders and put together a more solid draft. And if we get it to the point where we feel like we can do a special meeting with finance, I don't know what the timelines are and how much lead time we need to have a meeting called and the rest. But I feel it's important to have the foundation of the position be solid from the start before it goes to council.
Yeah, it turns into, I've seen stuff we try to do in town council that isn't ready. Oh my gosh, it ends up being a Pandora's box of all kinds of stuff, and it just gets out of control. And then you'll have this thing stranded in town council. I think it's.
Well, I wouldn't present it unless I thought it was ready. But I think that I don't, you're uncomfortable with doing that, and so I'm willing to, I want to do something that, I want to take an action that is going to be the most successful for this job description.
But I think if we get, it sounds like you've got a lot of the water side in this, but
Yes.
you've got to get the other side in here is the town.
Yes.
I don't think it's, again,
Maybe that's getting with the mayor on it and.
the mayor, and I think it'll be pretty simple, really. Just it needs more specificity in the types of duties that might serve on the town side, and then it's really the same language. It's the same sort of things, or not, like just having more meat to its bones than just saying, might do some stuff for the town, but so that.
Yeah, well,
this is something that-
actually, I don't know what to add for the town duties. I'm very focused on what they need to do for the water, but I need help with that part of it.
I can help with that.
Because I don't know what they're gonna do, how best to describe it in a general way that would cover it.
And if this weren't, if we had not had 18 agenda items on, it's the sort of thing we could have workshopped in this meeting. I feel like we'll get the best results doing that right now, but I'm going to be traveling, but I will take a look. The mayor should definitely take a look, but that we can at least put enough together for it to be solid and truly representing our important constitutional position.
So, basically, I don't know how available the mayor is, because he just went here too.
I think we've got it earmarked in our budget, so it's in there.
Mhm.
It's just getting this
Well,
detail in.
And I don't think it's an extraordinary amount of detail that needs to go in. And I understand the urgency too, like until this position is defined, we
Can't even advertise it.
But, okay.
I was just gonna say that maybe if we can relinquish the requirement to get it in on the 13th, once you are more available in town and the mayor and some other people might be more available, if people can noodle through it over this next week, maybe you could have a bit of a staff meeting that would hash it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then refine it for a special.
Yeah, no, I think it could.
Well, it's not important of an item, it is important.
Yeah,
It is,
I think it can be done
Yeah, but
mostly
we gotta
through
make sure
redlining.
You do it right.
you've got if you ask people to look at it over the next week and give it some thought, and then feed that all back to you, and then maybe even if it's just you and Storm, sit down and try to make sure that you've got it in a good place that's presentable to council. You could buy yourself then you have a special in later in the month.
So you'll have more time to work on this after, not right away? No.
No, I could probably work on it and visiting family,
Yeah, excuse me, uncle.
Yeah, literally.
Well, I think it's just gonna be a tough, next week or so, with you and the mayor and, I'm not in France, but
Well, I will send it out and then ask people to send it to me, and I will keep sending out the revisions. And as we hone it down.
I may be able to make some time tomorrow before I head out on Thursday.
That's good, that would be helpful, thank you.
So at least get both points.
yeah, so we'll just, defer.
Defer, right.
Defer, we're not tabling,
Yeah, if we
okay?
create a-
Don't think we're bypassing it.
We
We're-
create a press for the
Okay.
Budget and Finance Committee. I'll have to
Okay.
defer.
Number 19, discussion action to approve funding request from the Historic Landmarks Commission to catalog and archive scan Dan Risk papers. I sent an email out to the entire commission on May 27th. I have not gotten a response.
Okay.
So we just, another one, we
comes forward, we can
can defer on it. The
and
papers
we're
are sitting here someplace.
Oh, sorry. I'm
Okay.
working off of an old version of the agenda.
I didn't see the funding.
Oh, yes.
It's.
What do they want funding for?
Dan Risk, when he passed away, he was he the art historian or something like that, and so he had papers that his family passed on to the town, and they're sitting in probably their recorder's office over there, and Historic Landmarks wants it to be properly cataloged and put into a database.
And what is it, they want to hire someone to do this?
Yes, they want to hire a person. I suggested that they go and talk to a librarian, which they did. They talked to our library and the road all over Corpus Ferry Library. They gave them they said they gave us a lot of ideas, huge email on it, and different resources. So who you can hire, there's people who do this. They just haven't been able to get it put together yet.
Okay, well, it's not that much money that if we needed to revise the budget, we could accommodate it, we could.
Yeah, it's
handle it.
right, it's not a big thing. Okay, so we'll just defer that. So discussion action regarding the ADA and noise issues with the Harpers Ferry train station, and this is not an action, it's train station, Potomac Street crossing.
Yeah, I'll try to be.
I did read through it.
Yeah, and that's a lot of materials. We've done a bunch of research on it. So, in my notes, so there are potential opportunities to have the Potomac Street crossing be part of a designated quiet zone. The trains would not ordinarily be required to sound their horns at the Potomac Street crossing. So, benefits of this would be, and we roll all over that by saying, right now there's not a financial component to it, but it's one of these things that it's possible that to get a grant, there may be matching funds or a float amount.
Let me add to it. So it sounded like when I read it, that if we put in a crossing, you can't just do what we have right now, that wouldn't be acceptable. Right?
No, so.
We have to do something. What I'm doing this motion, it's a crossing.
Yes, so basically, finish the benefits, well, okay. So part of it is we have the Armory Canal Trail that's going to be there and having a safer crossing for that. In general, just reducing the amount of train noise, especially that. I don't know if it'll be 24 hours.
You have a vested interest in it?
Actually, honestly, it doesn't bother me.
I'm just kidding. Of course you do. No, you don't. It is loud over by your house.
Well, I've heard it from up the hill as well. And that, and honestly, with Hilltop coming, that would be a benefit.
I have heard Hilltop formally has been trying to reach out to CSX, but
And I have notes on that to share,
yeah,
and part of why, I feel like this, it can't be a huge cost to the town. And that there have been discussions with CSX, and they have said that it can cost as much as 1.2 to install the type of crossing that would be required, which it's like, no. But in my research, it can be done for less, even if not. There are a couple of avenues that this could be done. And this would be through the Federal Rail Administration. That's step one, is contacting them. And they're basically the arbiter of if you could even do this here, and if so, they would then work with CSX. One way it could be done is there is a required ADA upgrade to the Harpers Ferry Railroad Station. There's actually a consent decree where a court said, FRA, you must do this. And there's even a $2.1 million bucket of funds for people that feel they have been harmed because they have not been able to access the train station. Point being, and this is one of the documents I sent, was this immense study of how they would upgrade the station. It's possible in contact with the FRA that upgrading the crossing to being one that could qualify for a quiet zone, maybe that can be rolled in the plans. It does mention that crossing, but it says it'll be funded by someone else. Why not the FRA? So that's one group. Another would be, I did have discussions with Laurel Zemansky, this one, and that they are preparing what is called a tax increment financing package, a TIF, where they would essentially be banking off of the future value of the property. Now I researched this 2 days ago, and that this project could be coming out of that funding. So in that scenario, I don't know. I haven't researched it enough to know if it would be required of the town to do anything other than put this in motion with FRA. And that's what I'm asking now is, do we feel like this is something that we should bring to council to say, let's pursue this more, because without contacting FRA to find out what the deal is, that's sort of where we're at. I've read through the general information about this stuff and understand the qualifications for this sort of crossing, and understand what the cost would be, a general understanding of what the funding mechanisms could be that would not cost the town money. But it's contacting FRA that find out what's the real deal here and what's the real prospects of doing it in this way. So that's where it is.
I think if we just took this very line item here and just stuck it on their agenda, the town council's agenda, we could just explain like you did here. I think people, there's definitely a lack of knowledge on it. I didn't know anything until you mentioned this.
Yeah, and I understand it had been pursued a number of years ago.
The quality in the town would be huge by not having that, as long as it's safe to cross.
Well,
that's the
part of what would be great, is that right now, most people don't even know that that cap is there, just because the way the road is blocked off, and people think, oh, it's
They just think
I
the
had a
town
guy
ends.
Saturday I talked to, he was walking through town, I was close to your house, well, actually the bottom of the stairs, and I told him about the Armored Canal Trail that's coming, but I said, the trail is actually there now. And he says, well, it's not on he had some database.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even on the database.
It's still a public road as far as all maps
I
are
guess,
concerned.
and so
Technically it is.
I was rather surprised, and I saw him later, he came back, and he had a wonderful walk, got to the old dam, and moved back. But I think we need to pursue this, for sure.
The coolest would be an actual pedestrian crossing, but the difficulty with that is CSX uses that as a boat ramp. Like, they bring their vehicles to do track work there. So you couldn't have, because, if you've seen, usually it's on commuter lines, that it's a fence that runs and can be closed. that would be really nice if you're coming down Potomac Street, just walk straight through. But that would be part of the negotiation with CSX, in that would they be willing to effectively lose that as their put-in point for the maintenance vehicles? I doubt it. But again, if they have an incentive to do it or not, it's part of the negotiation through FRA.
Well, I have to say, the way CSX, it took them like only 8 months or so to get the bridge fixed. I thought that was very good. I'm not being facetious. I really thought that was good, that they got the footbridge back on in 8 months,
Well,
considering how long it could have gone.
well, it was the National Park Service that was more of the, they admitted that it was their mistake, error, and they were gonna fix it, because it was in the Park Service. The park had to redo it had to look at the re-engineering of it and all that.
It's a slightly different pressure point there, but.
Yeah. Although the
But
park,
it shows that they can do it.
yeah.
They can if they realize it's,
Yeah.
you know, our fault.
But by statute, they cannot deny doing this. For sure, it seems like they discourage it. I mean, they don't want to bother themselves generally. But that's part of what contacting the FRA does, is this negotiation, and they have say over who the engineer is, who's going to design the thing and all the rest. But by law, they can't deny improving the crossing.
And the ADA thing, you're talking about the station. One way is fine to go in DC, but it's the other direction, they have to go underneath the tracks, and I can see that turning into, that's not gonna be easy.
Well, it wasn't clear. Like, it actually appears that, I don't know if it's the long ramp that goes under and they rework the subway that's there, but it almost looks like the other way is they build the platforms all the way out to the crossing. That's another way you could access, is by actually going to the crossing and coming all the way back.
Yikes.
Yeah, no, and
It's a bit of distance, but yeah, I guess that's possible, yeah.
they didn't really consider it in 1931, so. But that's the whole story.
Well, I'm not
Yeah.
sure, I think that tunnel is not that old. I think in the old days, they just walked over the tracks like they do now.
Oh, they did. It was installed because they were having so many deaths.
Well,
They
yeah,
had to do
it's
something.
dangerous walking over railroad tracks,
Yeah.
So,
Well, what's the next step on that then? I mean, what would you like to do next for that?
Contact the FRA in order to find out what, in real terms, the next steps.
that's why I'm saying bring it to the town council, and then we can do a motion there, with the mayor signing off on the so you have the corporation of Harper's Ferry behind it, not just you, but
What
you
has
can
to
write
be,
the letter, but.
what has to be whomever the jurisdiction is, has to bring it forth to the FRA. So when it's formally done, yeah, it would definitely need to be here.
I'm sorry, my eyes are glazing over.
Well, all of our eyes are good.
Well, we're not done. because
We're not done,
we
but
gotta
it's
do
gonna
that.
go quick.
Number 2, we have to do discussion, okay, so just
All
bring it
right.
to the council, I think it'd be a great idea, but it's a discussion action, or maybe more specific to a letter.
Oh, yes, this,
This one
And
will
then
require
discussion action
interaction.
regarding the
Yes, yes, yes.
procurement of audited services for general and water budgets.
Right, okay, so we've received one bid. You guys should have it in your email. I sent it. I have one hard copy here, but it was
Yes.
very long, so I didn't want to go through all that, and especially since it was just the one. So the top page that you have there is our scoring instructions, and the second page is just part of the whole thing. I think you can kind of just take that off if you want to. And then what we're gonna do is on the next page, which says audit proposal score sheet summary, we're gonna fill that out as individuals to assign a score for each of the components. And then we'll summarize that on a sheet, and then everybody has to go through and sign. So I'll help you. Everybody have a pen?
Yeah.
Okay, the RFP number is 22-098. The entity is the Corporation of Harpers Ferry. And audit years ending are 2020 and 2021. Number of bids received is 1. Everybody with me? Okay, we're down to accounting firms. The first one is Perry and Associates with a P.
Perry?
Perry.
Oh. County?
Accounting firm. Contract amount is 21,000. Okay, and then you will score across there with number of points. Each, wait a minute, 0 to 4, 0 to 21. Example, the first section has 3 questions, responsiveness, and a maximum of 15 points. The question has a maximum point value of 5. Okay, so every person can give up to 5 points for the responsiveness to the proposal.
Oh,
So, do we need a copy of the proposal to see how
It's in your
well done-
email, or if you would like to, you can look at this one, but like I said, it's massive, and so I didn't print it all out, but I sent it out by email this afternoon.
Yes, I
Yeah.
look at it, but is the proposal itself massive? I mean,
Well, I mean, it's right here, it explains,
is it on one page?
here's exhibit A, and here's exhibit B, that's pretty much the crux of it. And then the rest of it is,
This is a bid summary.
so exactly.
I thought that the proposal would be a paragraph in which we explained what we wanted and what we were
Well,
looking
that's
for.
the request for proposal, which already was completed with Cox Holiday.
And that's that's the first question.
No, well, no, that is, what you have in your hand is what we asked them to bid on. So we
Yes.
would not be evaluating what we prepared for them. We are
No,
evaluating.
that's not, no, I'm sorry, I didn't make
Okay.
myself clear. Responsiveness to the proposal. That's where we evaluate whether they responded properly to
Oh,
our
yes,
proposal.
exactly, yeah.
So I was saying I need to know
Oh,
what
okay, okay,
So we can
the
do up to
proposal
15.
is in order to
Okay.
know if they responded to it.
okay, great, sorry. I,
Yeah.
of course, wrote the proposal, and I've had it in my head for 2 years, so it's very, I didn't really understand what you meant. To me, it's the audit for the 2 years, basically, and,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't understand. One of them I don't get, the cost.
Okay,
Yeah,
so the
yeah.
cost is you go through a math formula, and it's really quite simple because we only have one. What you do is you calculate the average cost for all submitted proposals. That cost is 21,000. You divide that by the number of proposals, comes up with 21,000. You divide each proposal price into the average, multiply this answer by 10, and round to the nearest whole number not to exceed 25. So 21,000 divided by 1 is 21,000. And then each proposal price into the average. So 21,000 into 21,000 is 1, right?
I don't think this formula really works when you don't have a.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So.
Right. So you can't really give them like a total number of points, but we just don't have a choice. It is what it is.
So it's just one.
Just put 1, and then everybody's gonna have 1. There's not gonna be a higher number. Yeah.
Okay.
Entity preference +1 to 5 points to 1 per firm. Oh, if you have a, I guess if you have a preference, you can
I'll give them an
You can
extra
give them an
point,
extra point. No,
or up to
I
5.
don't think we need to even do that.
Nope, just leave it.
Yep.
Pass.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna then make a summary sheet for us. And you have, did you see also, these are questions that guide you on
Yeah, I
that?
just
Yep.
noticed that.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I know.
These are the questions
Should have
that
had
guide
this in front
you.
of this.
Yes, I'm so sorry. These are the questions that are gonna guide you for your,
Okay.
how you make your criteria. I'm so sorry. It's been a year since I did this.
The last question is yes.
What's a single audit? Is this a single audit? Are they doing a single audit?
Fiscal 20 is going to be a regular audit, and fiscal 21 is gonna be a single audit. Single audit means that you have received over $750,000 of federal funds, which is what we rolled into between ARPA and the first part of the water project. So it's a more intense experience.
$750,000 within a single year.
Yeah, within a single fiscal year.
Should I sign these?
Yes.
For what
Wait,
number
well,
am I-
okay, so, but wait though, because we'll sign on the compiled sheet. Yeah.
I don't have to do that one.
Right.
I need to sign on the final page, right?
Yeah, firm name, number of committee members. Yeah, we're just gonna, but we should all do it on one. So let me just prepare that one.
On one sheet?
Yeah,
Okay, I'll wait. Yeah. Then you will need our sheets.
yes.
Okay. All right, I'm good.
Do they address whether they have single audit experience? Did anybody see that?
Single audit?
Experience?
On the questions here,
Yeah.
are, does the firm have extensive experience with federal grants and the single audit? I don't think they address that.
It says that the firm will perform the corporation in their opening letter. It says that, the firm will perform the corporation's audit in accordance with the American Institute of CPAs, except in the United States, yada, yada, yada. And the audit requirements of Title II U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, Uniform Administrative Requirements and Cost and Accounting Principles, Federal Uniform Code. I thought that said.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, a single audit will not be required for the corporation for the fiscal year 2020, but will be required in 2021.
Yes, under Ryan C. Lynn well, it doesn't directly say, but it mentions that, what, will be responsible for is perform single audit, internal control, substantive testing.
You're looking at where they talk about each person?
Yeah,
Okay.
because it lists all the projects they've been in, and quite a few of them are very large
It
entities.
appears that they've done a lot of towns like ours.
Charlestown.
So it's a very full range.
Yeah, they've done boards of education, they did secondary school. They did Jefferson County Commission, that's pretty impressive, Charlestown. Jefferson County Board of Education. That makes it easier, there's one.
Oh, and when it's impressive.
Oh, this I read, this, what we got here, wow.
Okay, so the average. So the cost criteria has to be 10, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Wait, what? Oh, it's 10.
because it's 1% being the, right. That makes sense, that you would want, that, because it's the only one, and it's itself, yeah.
You want 10?
Well, I think it has to be, because because the bid is the same as the average.
Yeah, no, 9 points.
Well, then you multiply it by, do you see that down the bottom line? It's on the big.
I just gave 1 point. Yeah, I gave.
But the bid and then the average, those two divided by each other is 1 for 1% times 10 is 10.
It's my score.
Is there a peer review report or not? I didn't see it.
Is there a which?
A peer review report?
Peer review.
Yeah, they did, there was
Yes.
a letter. Yeah,
Here's
I believe it's that letter.
Buckler, McKinney, and peer reviewer responsibility.
Appears they have done these. So
Yeah.
They know what's for the next package.
I'm gonna try to clean this one up and record everybody's score then on this one.
We don't set the bar very high. You know, they just got pass and pass with deficiency or fail. It's too bad they don't have like a pass plus.
It's very CPA.
Okay,
Is that right?
Christian, do you wanna be, bid scorer number 1?
Sure. Zooming down. Something I wanted.
Help me, DI. Storm, help me with your name, please, DI.
Oh, capital C, OSTAMZO.
Thank you. Okay. All right, I think when you're done with your sheet, if you you give to me, I can compile it then on the total. Wait, can you change this one? Because you changed it in the back.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Okay, and then. Oh. Okay, can you do me a favor and just check your math? I'm getting a different number going across there.
Right. Oh, because I had one already. Okay, I got it. They're wrong.
Are the numbers wrong?
Yeah, because I just added 10 instead of 9.
And then I think, yes, ma'am.
I'm probably gonna call this guy about what exactly they're gonna be doing, because this 120 water.
Oh, the 120 Waterman,
Do you
sure.
agree- Do you agree that it's fairly?
It's nebulous, yes. Could you write your name on there for me? I do just, okay, so, okay.
Sorry.
I do agree with you about that.
I wonder how long they've been in operation. Did they top up as soon as this copper?
Could you sign your name on there for me?
Lead copper thing.
83.
I mean, there's money to be made, for sure.
Mhm. Okay, and so. Okay, so now what we need to do is I will compile all of our scores onto this sheet. I'll take your sheets and I'll run it through here, but I compiled them on here. So I need everybody to sign and date next to their name, and then also on the back sheet over here, sign and date. No, here, I'll make this the back sheet. Sign and date on that. While you're doing that, I will transfer the numbers in. Square number 1, I was going to go on.
Who came up with this form? Is this the state?
Yeah,
I'm not against it.
yeah, I'm just saying it is.
Would it be proper to comment on this proposal? Well, I don't want to do anything I'm not supposed to.
What proposal?
This firm and what they sent about themselves.
Okay, are you talking about Perry, or are you talking about?
Perry, yeah,
okay.
Perry. Yeah,
Sure.
sorry, I did change the subject,
Yeah,
and I
and
apologize.
big shift.
Yeah.
I suppose, yeah.
I noticed how no matter who's doing the work, whether they're the most qualified or the least qualified or the have the most experience or have the most, they all charge, the rate per hour is the same. Did you notice that?
What?
This firm, Perry,
Oh,
they, of the people who are the most experienced CPAs, they charge $50 an hour for their work. And then the ones at the bottom that are, only 3 out of 4 of them were CPAs. I'm sorry, only 1 out of 4 of them was a CPA. They also charge $50 an hour for those people as well. It was the same rate, no matter what. And then, but the people at the bottom were actually the ones doing all the work. The people who are not the CPAs. Did you notice that?
Well, it's
Well, but-
probably an average man hour that incorporates their overhead.
And also, it's like law firms where anything that the folks that are further down, they're going to be supervised by the CPAs.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of kind of grind work that gets done that there's less judgment involved with it.
we've done other audits in the past.
Mhm. Yes,
So is this number seem in the ballpark with those?
well, it's higher, but first of all, it's a single audit. The one is a single audit, and the one that's not a single audit is not that much higher because we just had one done, which was like just under $8,000, but that was a bid from like 2 years ago. So the $9,000 really is an outline.
That's all, in case somebody questions this.
All right, I'm actually not gonna try to convert this right now, because I'm like you, I'm feeling a little spacey, and I'd rather do it right the first time through, so I will do that in the morning. If I have any questions on any of your scores, I will get in touch with you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, I think we did it.
Oh, well, we're not done
Maybe we
yet.
need to close the meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Otherwise, we're-
I move that we end our meeting at 7:06 PM.
Wow, that
All
was
those in favor?
Second.
All right, second, and there we go.
Okay.